Well, howdy, folks. You are in store for a wild ride with the most optimistic dude that's ever traded a stock. Yes, that is Jim Roppel, Ropes, as I like to call him, and he is joining the Webby Rambles on family today. And this is going to be a blast. And hey, what's up, Ropes?
Mostly you, man, and the market. And
There you
Marcus
go.
King.
And
I put
Market
Marcus
King.
King on for you.
I love that. And the first thing I said when we hopped on pre-show, I was like, I see Marcus King up there. Dude, I'm going to see him like 4 times in May. I could not be more excited about it. It's Have you seen him yet? Have
Yes.
you
Well,
seen him
because
live?
you from
Okay.
Chicago, I really was hoping Briley would show up. I'm more interested in seeing her than him, but
I
no.
bet you are. His wife, for those of you who don't know, very, very attractive wife who's very active on Instagram. But how was the show? Did you like it?
Dude, it was everything I expected. But I listened to his album, The Well, and
Okay.
I would jam him. So I knew all his songs, and I went with a really good friend, and we just had the best night.
Oh, that is great. So we will talk music again at the very end of this show. I hopefully don't tell me what it is, but we will always end these hangouts with your favorite album. So if you haven't thought of it, think of it. Don't tell me. Did you
My
forget?
God.
Okay.
No, it's not. Oh, dude, there's so many.
Yes, that's the problem. That was your homework. I gave you one homework assignment, dude. One homework assignment,
I didn't read I didn't read the notes, teacher.
and it's okay.
All
So,
right, I will write it down as I go along.
okay, yeah, just think about it. But look, I think everyone watching probably knows you, but there might be one or two folks who don't know you. Can't imagine that's possible. But tell people a little bit about yourself, and you're the most pessimistic dude who's ever lived, and all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Dude, the
You
world's
hate
coming to an end.
America.
There's no more. Golden Goose is dead. Golden Goose was shot. Kevlar did not hold. Okay, so I met you 1,000 years ago, sitting
Yeah,
in the first row, listening to
in
you
Chicago.
tell me how to learn from you, learned so much from you.
Oh, thank you.
I, I was a retail cold call stock jockey for some odd years. Went to my dad's broker hired me. Went to Northern Trust. They hated me because I was a compliance nightmare because I cut my losses. That I was
So you
recruited
did
to
it the right
Morgan.
way.
Yeah, well,
So
yeah,
you
they
did
just
it
wanted
the
to make
right
money.
way.
They don't care about the customer.
Yep.
Um, then Morgan recruited me, and in 1999, and I was very, very fortunate to receive a giant bonus check from them, and I
Wow.
tripled it into the 99 climax top. And then Morgan, we get into the bear market, and they're like, "You have $150 million in money market. When are you going to put that to work? We need to make some commissions here." I said, "Well, in case you haven't noticed, we're in a bear market. I'm not going to do anything." So we just butted loggerheads, And
Yeah.
finally, I said, "I can't take this." Uh, Not only that, so I was last in. I'd buy stock all day and I'd be moving it up a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and then I could go buy mine. So I was
Okay.
losing more in pushing stocks up than I was making in commission. So hedge fund, here I come, no more compliant. Well, now I have government compliance.
Yeah.
And I got to know you just through the IBD circle and O'Neill and Company, and shared a lot of ideas and good jams. And now I'm here with you now.
That is awesome. It is like full circle. I will never forget the first time I met you because Bill had told me that, hey, Jim is here. He really loved you. He really did. He had a special place in his heart for you because you had the work ethic. And that's what really mattered so much to him is the people who got the system, but would also put in the work the way you did. And so he said, hey, Ropel is going to be, or Jim is going to be here, blah, blah, blah. And I think you were probably sitting with Eve and Kathy is my guess, but you were sitting in the front row. And for people who didn't know, like, so this is me teaching with Bill. And so Bill's up there first. Everyone pays to come see him. And I'm just like, I called myself Taco Bell. I was just like filler food, like just there to fill in the time because Bill couldn't be on there 8 hours. And you're sitting there the first time. I was so nervous because I hated being on stage at that back then. And you're sitting there with your arms crossed, looking at me. I'm like, oh no, Jim, Jim doesn't like what I have to say. And yes, just like that. That was the look. Now you say that it didn't happen, but I will never forget that. But but we've
Oh,
been
come on,
friends
dude.
ever since.
The reality is I've learned so much from you early on. I mean, you were talking to Bill daily, and I was talking to Bill quarterly at best back
Yeah.
in the day. I learned a lot, and I still, you know, when I hear you speak, I think do you work for IBD right now?
Yeah.
Yes. So when I would go to the seminars, if I went to one with you today, whatever it cost, I would the value of something. I learn one thing from you every time I go. It's just so worth it. I'll learn from you today.
Well, thank you. You'll learn that Marcus King's new album is as bad as as good as his last one, and that one was better than the one before. So that's what you'll learn today. You gotta check it out. So that's kind of how your arc of learning. But let's go back to the very beginning. Like, what got you interested in stocks? Like, were you a young kid or a teenager, or where did that come about?
Okay, so I had a friend who was a wealthy family, and he had a Commodore 64 and he had Commodore stock, and we would kind of chart it. And then my grandfather was a Russian immigrant, German Russian. He was in the Bally pinball machine factory in Chicago,
Cool.
stamping pinball decks. And he was like one of the first companies in America to grant stock options. And so my
Wow,
grandpa had stock options. This is 50 years ago.
that's
And we would
crazy.
go to my grandpa's house every Sunday and we would talk. My grandpa would go, can you believe they traded 25 million shares on the New York Stock Exchange on Friday? And we would watch his Bally stock go. And then my dad inherited a little bit of money from my mom's from his father-in-law, and he bought Genentech. And then in college,
Oh, Genentech,
two
Bill
friends I
did that
had inherited stock from their parents. Dude, Bill taught me, I'm going way back
one.
20, 30 years. And Genentech exploded up on news. And Bill goes, Jim, the base is terrible. He goes, but when you have a total tectonic shift in personality in one day, it can all be nullified.
Yeah.
He goes,
Yeah.
and you had to buy that stock that day.
Yeah.
Did you think
That's
he would do that
I
often?
think.
How often would he do that?
Not very often, but he would do it a couple different times. One that I learned from that he didn't do and I didn't do was Monster Beverage, which was Hanson at the time, midway through its model book move. So it had really two kind of distinct model book moves, and people can look at that after the show and look at a monthly chart and see. But it ran up, had a big move, and then it had the worst base in the world. But it was a fundamental thing that changed it, and then and ripped up and had another big move where he would do it. And this was a technique that he got from, I think it was 20th Century Funds. I think they were out of Colorado or something. I could be wrong, but it was acceleration in earnings and sales. So if there was 3 quarters in a row of accelerating sales and earnings, he would, and this is back in the day, back when I was in the research department for him from 97 to the end of 99, they were called hot stocks. And so as soon as we would process those, because we would get the press release, enter the data, if it had 3 quarters of acceleration on both, we were supposed to fax that to Bill. It was scary as can be because you want to make sure you didn't screw up. You're sending it to him. And he would just most of the time just buy it because that was his one time that even if the stock was out of position, no base in sight, if you have those 3 quarters of acceleration on both sides, they said on balance, that is going to work out. Now, of course, he did his risk management on there. He'd cut his loss at 7% max. He never strayed from that, but he would buy things out of position more times than you would think. Frankly, because just think about the compliance. Like you were a client taking the Nesme book, and when Bill and I would put that on, we had to wait, and the rest of the team of PMs, like 10 of us, would have to wait 48 hours till we could buy it. So we were almost always buying out of position. It was just made things so much harder than it needed to be. But anyways, that's a topic for another time. So what about you? Do you buy out of position at all at times, or do you stick by the book, or what do you do?
Dude, I think I miss a lot because I demand so much digestion and consolidation. Now, an earnings gap is different. I will just go after that completely out of position. But I want to talk about Billiken because you said he bought it more fundamentally. what percentage of stocks I think I know, and I think you might have told me already, but do you think he bought more stocks off of fundamental criteria or technical?
Technical.
Like, how much of
But
a fundamentalist versus how much of a
well, if you add what he would say in reality were two different things. What he said, he never lied. Like it wasn't like lying, but he would say it was 80% fundamentals. But it was really 100% fundamentals and 100% technical. He would want them both there with that exception of the acceleration of earnings and sales. That would be his one exception. And he wouldn't, if a stock had accelerating earnings and sales, he would buy it only if it was way up. He wouldn't buy that if that was in the dirt. He would never buy anything with a bunch of overhead, with the exception of like the '09 timeframe, but that was unique. But in a normal market environment, he wouldn't buy anything pretty much more than 15% off its highs, because I wouldn't give him things more than 15% off its highs because I didn't want him to yell at me. So I just kind of learned, like where that stove was hot, man. But it was it was both. He wouldn't even allow us to when Chuck, because Chuck and I used to build all the model books for him, that he wouldn't even allow us to put a model book stock in there unless the fundamentals were the way he liked them at the time. So he would study a subset of things. You can go back. The classic example is CF back in, I think it was '07, '08 when it was running up. And Charles and I hemmed and hawed about the right pivot on that for months. Like we'd go back and forth because we knew that once we brought it to Bill, if he didn't like the pivot, it was going to set us back in all of our work. So we wanted to get it exactly the way he would like. So we finally got it. Sometimes the volume wouldn't be there on the breakout. So he would want the volume there. But then by the time the volume came in, it would be too extended. And it was this whole thing that we'd spend forever on. We finally settled on something, gave it to him, and he was so mad. He's like, the earnings were negative there. We would have never bought it. And he wanted to wait until it was just midway through the advance, just no consolidation in sight. But once the earnings were out there, then he's like, that's where you could buy it. So, and there's nothing wrong with that because he had a very precise thing that he was looking for. And it sounds like you have yours too. Like he would skip a bunch of stocks, but the ones that he would go after, he would really dig deep, and you like to concentrate the way he did. So then that makes sense because you have that conviction in it. Would you say that's a fair statement?
It's a very fair statement. Now, I will get into a name, and sometimes it moves so quick, I might build a big size position, and I might not exactly know exactly why. I mean, I'll have a
Mhm.
cursory understanding, but I will never carry a big position. When big for me is 20% or more.
Okay.
Anything over that 23, that's like for me, dude, I'm not the cowboy I used to be, but
Yeah.
I will learn within days or hours what is really the key driver. But I want to go back again. I want to back up to
Sure.
Bill again. I found that Bill had rules for the public, and then I think
Mhm.
he had rules for Bill.
Yep.
Like, I
Absolutely.
think I am so by the book, like the O'Neill rep would come see me and he'd look at what I had. He goes, God, he goes, I go to Fidelity and all these big places. He goes, nobody adheres so strictly. And I think my strictness to the criteria keeps me out of names that I think Bill would get into. Like, okay, so stocks that just rip, Bill will go 5 weeks up in a row. You have to add. And I think Bill might even start up there where he
Mhm.
would say, you can't do that for most people.
Mhm.
What was your experience?
Oh yeah, he would buy things all over the place. The way he would say to do it and the way he would do it, part of it was the market mechanics. And you also want to think, as much as he was the hardest worker, the strongest work ethic of anyone I've ever seen, and what a great role model from through that lens. I mean, he was always working, but he was managing 800 plus people in multiple companies, and people don't realize that aspect of it. Like that's a lot of work. So he would rely on folks like myself to help him out with the market stuff, but he had this sense of what was the true leader. And I think he got that from his routine. And one of his routines was, of course, the weekend routine, which is kind of similar, probably the same thing you do and I do, look at everything under the sun. But it was daily. He would look through the newspaper stock tables, like the printed newspaper, and go line by line through there. and circle things that have moves that were unusually strong or weak, and then he would go over to his Wanda machine, which is like market surge, but it was just what we use on the institutional side, and then pull up the stock. That was his workflow. And if he saw something unusual that we missed, because again, it was very important, it had to be on the list for us to trade it. We not the PMs could not trade something that wasn't on the list.
It wasn't on the net.
It was, yeah, if it wasn't on the NESME list, it wasn't in our universe. We could trade it in our personal account, but if we wanted to trade it in Bill's account, it had to be on there. It had to be on there for 48 hours. And we tried to get him to put them on before the breakout so we could all buy him on the breakout. But later in his career, he wanted to wait for that breakout because so many breakouts don't even work, but he would want to see the evidence of the breakout. And then if it was a strong breakout, he'd put it on. So by definition, unless we put it on in January and it runs up and then we still have it on the list after it forms another base and then we're buying it, which wasn't very often. It would be early on because we'd be excited about it when it's on. We kind of had to buy it out of position, which means he had to. And if you really delve into, like, you're stopping yourself, or you put in a speed limit at 20 to 23%, which I think makes a lot of sense, that his speed limit was as much margin as he had. Like he would go 200% long, and I think longer at times, because he would look at the consolidated account and just take buying power from us. So he would have more when he's hot. And when he was cold, which Bill would be cold too, people don't realize he would delve out the money to the rest of us. And then when he got hot again, he would pull it all back because he was the master. And that was fine. But it forced him into buying out a position. And think about it. If you are going to, let's say, start a position at 15%, is your normal starting position, somewhere between 10 and 15%. And you get that up to 200% long. Well, you can't do that by pyramiding. By definition, you can't. You've got a reverse pyramid. Maybe you start off with 15% and ultimately build it to 25%. Well, how in the world do you get from 25 to 200 unless you're reverse pyramiding, something that he would say not to do? But I reverse pyramid all the time once I kind of put those pieces together. But the the key that Bill had that I will never have, and I've never seen anyone else have it, was his ability to utilize his cushion and the way he would trade. And he would always say, and he would do his cushion in points, not in percent. He would say, well, they can't take 30 points away from me or 50 points away from me or whatever the amount was on the stock. And he would sell off his highest cost basis first. So not a last in, first out, not a FIFO, not an average. If the stock, if he went up to his eyeballs in stock and it started curling over, he would start selling off those high cost basis stocks so he could keep that cushion. Man, dude, I just mess that up all the time because when I start selling and then all of a sudden I oversell, and before you know it, I plan on selling 10% and I'm out of the stock. Like that's why I had to develop my quicksand Grateful Dead rules with RS line moving averages to solve that, to help to solve that problem. But he was just, I mean, you saw it. You heard him talk about his positions, his heavy positions. I mean, what's your take on his heavy positions? Because that's different than what you do.
I think Bill was much more aggressive than people think. I think he was a heavy user of margin. I think he
Uh-huh.
would get a little traction, and I think he would ramp up extremely quickly. And I think the position sizes that he took were kind of like what I took when I was young and I had no money. I don't run like that. I think Bill ran like a cowboy, no, the best cowboy with great risk management. But I think in order to achieve 30, 40% a year in perpetuity, you have to be that. You can't keep that up. I think he was far more aggressive than most people think. I think he was more active. And here's the thing. You said he had 800 employees. The fact that he achieved those incredible stats while running 800 people, having meetings in the newspaper, talking to me, talking to other fund managers, like, dude, I'm running the Roppel report. And I think like that's some kind of burden. And he's running, 50 times the, the cinder blocks around his ankles and restrictions and on the Nesme running a big company, data services, all that, and still did what he did. I just find him to be incredibly unique. Most people running at that caliber are straight on hedge fund manager only, and that's it.
Yep.
The only restriction would be SEC and size.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a little internet connection here, so I didn't mean to step on your toes there. The other thing that you and I know, and we won't get into this, but in any detail, but he was as involved with politics as he was with the market. So anytime it was an election year, even mid-cycle, he was heavily involved, and like that's what we would talk about on Sunday nights. We would get through our normal work, and then he was like a kid who just wanted to talk politics, but we'd have to finish all of our stuff before we could get to the dessert. And we talked politics for like an hour, and I would just mainly sit and listen. And I think he actually knew more about politics than he knew about the market. And I'm not kidding. Like did you ever sit and really talk about, and I don't want to get into his views because I don't want to turn a lot of people off, but the three of us have the same take on things, but did he ever talk a lot of politics with you?
Dude, he almost would split up half the I
Yeah,
wanted to talk stocks and I was very aligned with him and I'm
yeah,
all good with that, but he wanted to talk dude, this is another thing, and I think it might have helped him. I think Bill was driven by two variables: to teach the public how to invest and improve their life, and to curb the things he didn't like about
yep,
politics.
yep.
The money, I don't think drove him. And so when money went against him, I call it having a disrespect for money. I'm a position sitter. And when a stock has a normal pullback, it's healthy, I'm losing capital. I don't think that would bother him as much because he was more altruistic. He wasn't in it to buy a Lambo or a 15 bedroom mansion. He's trying to improve. I believe he's a real altruist. So
I
I
believe
think it
so.
was easy.
I believe so too. And that's, we would have those conversations, and he would say, Mike, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you. And he would always forget that I'm a vegetarian. He'd go, you can only eat one steak at a time. I'm like, Bill, I'm a vegetarian. He's like, well, you know what I mean, Mike.
Well, hold on. I got the one leg at a time thing too at the Ronald Reagan seminar. Remember in Simi Valley, he had the thing.
I missed that one. I
All day.
missed that. I didn't you go there. Yeah.
So I'm talking to him, and it's just after the top, and he goes, "Well, we're not going to see a market like that for all. This is the 2000 top post." And he goes, "How'd you do?" I go, "I was up about 300%." He's like, "Well, you know, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, kid." It was so, dude. I heard that exact same thing, and sure enough, he's right. There's no doubt. But dude, I have so many questions now. As you were speaking, I have questions.
Sure. Yeah.
How much do you think? Well, first of all, I would get the before daily graphs online. It was all paper, and I would
Yep.
do all my chart work on Sunday. And I think breakouts used to occur far more prevalent on Mondays because I think a lot of people, just like you and me, were
Mhm.
doing the same thing. Now, this begs a question. Do you think you trade what day of the week do you think you trade the most, or do you not have you never thought about it?
What day because the internet connection was going out. You were saying what day of the week do you think I trade the most? Um,
Yes, or
you're absolutely
the
right about
week.
that. Back in the day, the Mondays, way back in the day, it was be Mondays because you were just dying. And it's funny, I actually created back in the late 90s, I created my first circuit breaker rules that would help me maintain the equity curve that I would want. And this was, from a swing trading standpoint, not a position trading standpoint. It would, if I had a series of things that would happen that were negative, I would go out of the market, go completely to cash, and I would have to wait until the next Tuesday. So if it happened anytime during the week, either Monday through Friday, I'd force myself to wait until the next Tuesday, 35 minutes into the open, for the reason that you're talking about, that I would put myself in cash, let's say on Tuesday, because I was just trading terribly. Then I'd sit and think about what I've done and study it and everything. Then over the weekend, I would study everything and I have my big watch list. What it did is it allowed me to sit through Monday to see if I was back on again. And that was really a game changer. It was really one of those things that really had a material positive impact on my trading because it allowed me to cool off. And then at first I said, okay, I can't buy until Tuesday. And then I found myself Tuesday morning going from like 0 to 200% long and at the open. And I go, okay, wait, Mike, that doesn't make sense. So then wait until 35 minutes into the day for that reason. Cause you're right. With chart books, it was that thing on Monday. And I don't really know. Obviously, we all treat Fridays differently because they're the most important day and most important close of the week. But what would you say that you do? Well, what day of the week would you
Well,
buy the most?
I would trade Monday. I'd find all the bases on Monday or on
Yeah.
Sunday, and they would somehow I think the community was breaking them out in some cases, some of the smaller names. Now, it's funny. I think I probably only initiate in a year 30 new whole positions, maybe 40. I I think the order of experience and just a natural evolution of a trader. Number one, rookies don't cut their losses. Number two, they buy extended. Number three, they overtrade. And I think the evolution is trade less, trade bigger, sit more. And so I'm not the person I was 1,000 years ago. But again, I'm running money for other people. I
Mhm.
have their objectives and goals in mind. And I also don't want to live my life like I did back then. I want to, I think a lot of people might have heard the story. I built the house I'm in now, and I wanted to knock a tile out of the shower wall and put a glass thing on there where I could put a computer behind it. I could see the market was, and my dad's like, he's like, "You want to do what?" He's like, "You want to watch the market? So you're watching it in the shower?" He's like, "Where's your semblance of peace?" He goes, "You want," and I call it living on a razor's edge. And I'm like, well, back then, this house is 20, 30 years old. I liked it like that. And now I would rather check in with the market. I do watch it a lot, but if I'm clear headed, I could play a round of golf and every second hole, pull up my handheld and check. I feel that I have to be forced into action. It's breaking out. It's all there. And I have got to buy this or I'm remiss, or it's failing the 50 violently. I being foolish not to sell stock. I'm never acting ahead of the curve, but I'll tell you this, you said the Nesme and Bill would wait after a while getting the Nesme, I kind of used it as confirmation that I was on track and I was hoping that I'd be in it before. So, but the Nesme was just an insanely great product. And I'll tell you this, it's, well, dude, it's the best product there ever was for serious people who are trying to make money. And I've seen a lot, but I'll tell you this, I think a lot of people who were under Bill's tutelage, when your grandmaster says, this is max exposure, and this is the pool you were fishing in. When people left O'Neill and Company, I think they didn't do as well because they didn't have him hit the accelerator. Did he say you have to add or just gave you the leniency to do so? But when he said back off,
He
you
would
had to
give you
sell,
the
right?
leniency to what he would do. Well, there was a couple different, there were different things that he would do over the years and would change all the time. But for a while, he just left us alone. He just left us do whatever we wanted to do. You couldn't be more than 200% long. You would have a block list, meaning if the firm was up there, their eyeballs in XYZ stock, you weren't allowed to buy it. That caused a lot of unintended, negative unintended consequences. That's a topic for a different day. But yeah, he would. Well, there's so much there. He was different all of the time. There were times where he would micromanage to the point where he never emailed because he didn't have an email, but he would call us up and call up Chuck and say, oh, send out this email or call me up or one of the other guys on the team. And we'd send out an email. Bill said, now we can go from 57% to 62%. And then 2 hours later, it'd be 55%. Then it would be 73%. These weird numbers. One time it was 5 changes in one day. So as a PM, that makes it impossible, right? Because you don't know. He's looking at the consolidated. He's looking at 10 people's accounts, including his own, and saying, okay, he's getting this positive feedback from the market. So let the guys go in deeper. He's getting negative feedback from the accounts in the market, pull it in. The micromanaging didn't, it'll only hurt. But so I just say that to anyone who's managing PMs out there. You give them the rules ahead of time, say, okay, you can do this, whatever those things are, make sure everyone's clear, and then just leave them alone. Because the me going in and trying to help you, or you going in to try to help me, we would both mean well, but I'm going to trade dramatically differently than you and vice versa, even though we're trading the same basic system, but we're just approaching it differently. And you're not wrong or right, and I'm not wrong or right. We're just right for ourselves. And I think that's probably the most important thing. If anyone's watching this, is to recognize that you traded differently than Bill. Everyone traded differently than Bill. I trade differently than Bill. There's only one Roppel. There's only one Bill. There's only one Lee Freestone. There's only one Charles. There's only one whatever. And what your goal is to figure out what that is for you. And Bill was different. Like I studied all of his stuff in the 60s. He was different than the 70s, and he was different than the 80s, different than the 90s. And even from 2000 to when he retired, there was lots of different changes. And I think that's the right way to go. Like you found the sweet spot for you, only doing 30 stocks in a year. That that works for you. Plus you're trading other people's money, and other people want to know that you understand the fundamentals of it. So yeah, it's impossible to know the fundamentals on that 300 stocks. Would you say that's all fair, or
I would say it's all very, very fair. But I think that when you had to work under Bill, if you weren't following the rules, I would suspect you were going to get a bad phone call. So that was like a guardrail. Everybody needs a guardrail. I
yeah.
think the people who are listening, their guardrail is their equity curve. But you guys had to have an equity curve, but you also had to be like, if that phone rings and I'm out of position and he's going to ask me what the hockey sticks is going on here, that's a big incentive to stay in line.
That those calls were scary, man. They were really scary because we weren't clients. Like you, he had to be nice to you, man. He didn't have to be nice to
Well, I
us.
had the best.
He,
I had the
and
best of both worlds.
you-
I got the products. I got the Nesme. I got the red tablet, the big monster tablets,
yeah,
and then I had the custom book. And then Bill would. It was in the contract. He had to talk to me like every 2 months or something. He had to be nice to me, and I got all
yeah.
the products. I got the best of both. It cost me money. Worth it.
Well, Bill didn't
Totally.
charge as much as he should have, frankly, and he charged a lot, but he could have. He was one of a kind, and I think he should have probably charged even more than he did for stuff. But that's a topic for another day. But going back to what you were saying about golfing, it brought me back. We both traded through the same trader at O'Neill for a while. You traded through Tony, right? Tony, I love Tony.
I did.
He was a great
And
dude.
so did Bill.
What say again?
So did Bill.
Yeah, Bill traded through Tony. He traded through Joan at first, and then he ultimately traded through Tony. Yeah. Did you trade through Joan for a while, or?
Well, I asked whoever. I basically, when Bill traded different, went to a different trader. I just asked for the same trader.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, Tony was great. I love Tony. What Tony would say to me at times, he'd say, "Well, Roppel's because Tony was a head trader there, and so he would have access to know what everyone is doing. The Fidelities who trade through us, the hedge funds like you, and then all 10 of us. Bill would typically have 10 PMs, and we would all come and go over the years, but." So Tony got to see everything, and he'd say, "You know what? The only one doing it, the like the way that the book says is you." Because he said, Ropes would be out there on the golf course and call me up, buy me 10,000 or buy me 20, whatever it was you're buying, and then you go back to golf, and we're all sitting there glued to our freaking screens, and watching the level 2 and time and sales, and the dude was out there having fun, enjoying life, and we were very envious. I was.
I loved Tony. He was so good. So was Joan. But one time, the big Crocs move, and
Oh,
I call Tony, go buy me a block of stock, and I hear this like squabble. I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Bill's right here. He's pissed off, man. You blew him off the box. He's buying it too." I was like, "Yes, that was
Crocs was
great."
when Crocs was one of my babies, and I remember that. That's a story for another day. But yes, it would get us really upset because the way the rules would go is clients first, then the firm, then our personal. So if we were in there doing a trade, and that's why lots of times we would just get in there and just like market order, just take them, because if we were
You
working an
knew I
order, yeah, I would do TWAPs, percent of volume, but I would have to tighten those up at times because you might come in there with an order or Fidelity or somebody else, and then they had to cancel our order until you guys were done. And sometimes clients would do it for an entire day, like a full day work and order, and then we're out, like, and you can't sell or buy. And then we'd have to, for our personal account, we'd have to call up to make sure clients, and there's no other PMs trading it. So it was quite difficult. But no, Tony thought the world of you. We all did. You were one of the client. There's the Ken Hebners, and there's the some of the key people that Bill really respected, and then there was everybody else, and you were in a special group.
and I'll tell you this when this special group guy didn't get it right, and it goes back. This is a kind of a little rule I learned. I built up this really big position. It was several hundred. It was a 370,000 shares of Crocs, and on
Okay,
Halloween Eve they
I remember.
missed,
Yep.
and it was very big. And I went through my whole account and I said, why was this? What was the clue that I should have picked up on why this was the one that was going to blow up? And I recognized it was the
What was
worst
there?
performer after a big run. And so now I kind of have a guideline that after a big run, I go through everything I have, and the weakest of the bunch, I have to go, what's up? And I might sell the whole thing just because of that. Now, this isn't 2 weeks into a new bull market. This is 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. The market's super extended. I have trimmed and gotten rid of whole positions because of that nightmare. And then I remember
Yeah.
calling up O'Neill. Joan is like, Jim, you don't want to sell that stock here because everybody was on the offer at the whole operation.
Yeah, I blew it out in the after hours or pre-market, whichever. I think it came out after hours, then I could talk about that for a few hours long. In a nutshell, there were because it was my biggest position. That was the biggest hit I ever took in a day, was that day. And it was completely avoidable. I'll just tell it in a nutshell. 2 weeks before that, because I was in there and I was trading it big, but we would block, like I was saying before. So there's 10 people on staff, and the first two people to get 35,000 shares at that time controlled the stock. So it was your goal to get at least 35,000 shares, then you could control it and no one else could. And I got onto Crocs. In fact, I'm wearing a pair of Crocs right now. I love Crocs. I still love Crocs. But I will I was in there in a big way, and I was controlling it for that move, me and another person. And a couple weeks before the top, because I would watch the level two when you were at the golf course, I was sitting there watching the level two, and I'd go in there and I'd buy 5 or 10,000 shares, watch how it would take the tape, or how it was coming through the tape. Then I'd sell it in different ways to see, like, are there true buyers or not. And it started acting wrong. Like, Bill was a tape reader, Livermore was a tape reader, like, and I was a tape reader at the time. You can't tape read anymore. It's a dead art because of algos. But at the time, it still made sense. And I called up Bill. I've only asked for two things out of him in my entire career. One was a second monitor when I first started because I wanted to do more work. It's like, well, I guess we can get you a second monitor. And then the second thing, I'm not kidding. Everyone would ask him for raises, more money to manage. Never asked him for any of that. I called him up. I'm like, Bill, Crocs is not acting right. And he's like, well, what's wrong with it? And I said, well, it's the stuff on the level two. And he was like, well, yeah, blah, blah. He's like, well, Mike, and I'd already sold it down to like only a 6% position. And I wanted to just blow out even the rest of it. But I was now under 35,000 shares, so I couldn't control it, and it was on a closing basis at the end of the day. So I call him up and I'm like, Bill, could I have ask for a favor, and could I still control the stock because I, don't want to have this position going into earnings. He's like, well, Mike, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. Like, dude, you make the rules. You can do whatever you want. I didn't say that to him. So I got off the phone and I'm like, okay, I know what happens if I don't have this big position going in there in the earning. I'm like, am I reading too much into this level two stuff? And it was some daily action. I'm like, okay, let me just buy it all back. And then I just have this habit that I got into from what something I learned from him. When you sell something down or blow it out, when you go back in, buy it more of it because then you're putting yourself on the offense. And so I've always done that. He told me that in '02. And so it always stuck with me. So yeah,
15% more?
He
15%
would say
more?
more he would say more and then originally he said it doesn't have to be a lot, it can just be 5 or 10%, but, so I used to say 10%, but it could be 5, 10, 15%, just a little. I would, on balance, do it 10% more, but this time I just plowed in. I'm like, "Okay, well, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it big," and boy, man, I learned so much from that because in the end, I should have just listened to my own. It wasn't Bill's fault, it was Webby's fault because I should have just said, "You know what? I'm gonna just have to let this one go." Now, that's what you do. In the end, it's always you. It's not anybody else, and then you have to learn from it. And that was literally the only thing I ever asked him for besides that monitor. And that monitor was a CRT, if you remember what those were.
Yes, CAT scan radio tube.
Yeah,
Dude, I just wanna say something. When I see somebody out in a bar and they know whatever, they start talking and they're like, "Oh, the market did this to me." I'm like, "You're never gonna make it. If you don't own your losses, if you blame others, you have no responsibility. You're not there are no victims in the market. There is all your decision." Now, on the other side, when you kill it, you killed it, okay?
yep,
It was you who did it. But so personal responsibility in the market's critical for success. But you mentioned earnings. We both talked about Crocs.
yep.
I was talking to Bill, and I get this question a lot from people. And I said, "Bill, when you're headed into earnings, what do you do?" And Bill's response to me was, "How is your cushion?" And he goes, "Have you used the product? Have you been to the store? Have you used the product?" And he's like, "How much do you believe in that?" He goes, "How much do you believe in the fundamentals? How much research have you done with cushion?" What did he tell you about, I'm rolling into earnings and I have a 25% position, and let's say you're up, you take it from here. What would Bill tell you?
Well, he would say it's all in the chart. So he never bought into the Reg FD thing that where Reg FD made it where things gap up and gap down on earnings because nobody knows. And he never came around to that. And he would always say it's in the chart. Now, he never specified a particular cushion or anything. I think now, if he was still with us, he would have come around to the Reg FD thing because he was just, I think he was just so busy, and it was when that started impacting him. He was nearing retirement, and so I just don't think he picked up on that. But I know that he would have, and he would have treated it differently. Now he wasn't into hedging. He wasn't into us doing options and stuff. Although every once in a blue moon he would do some options, but he wasn't really. He would do like call options when he was super heavy with something and he wanted a little extra. I mean, that started off with Syntex back in '62 when his, post Chrysler trade, when he was in there with Syntex, he added a little bit of options there at the end. And it was from that trade is what he ended up buying his house, buying the seat on the exchange, starting off the company. So that was a big deal for him. But no, he never believed that the earnings gap downs weren't in the chart. And I just disagree with that at this point. And I don't think he would I think he would be on board with that. It is just a total crapshoot, but it used to be in the chart. And you remember back in the day, we didn't have gaps. It was very rare to have a gap. Now they're 4 times a year, major gaps.
Stocks used to beautifully over time because there was a slow, consistent dissemination from the CEO to an analyst to another analyst. Information it didn't leak out. It wasn't insider. It was material, but it came out in between earnings.
Hmm.
I totally think I call in the Roper report, I call it the minefield because I look at it like I have to have X cushion because if I don't, I know any stock could gap down at least 20% on earnings. So
Hmm.
I don't mind drawing down off top. I don't love it. But when I draw down below cost is when I get really fussy.
Well, wait,
Dude, I want to ask
we
you another question.
No, 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 no. Before we
Go
do the
ahead.
question, you mentioned Roper report, and I just don't. I want to just share with people because some people might. There might be someone who doesn't know you or doesn't know your thing. So let me just share the Roper report. Let's just.
Oh my,
Why don't you
whoa.
just talk about that for a second? What your motivation was to do it? Because here you're running a hedge fund, and I think you're taking after what Bill did and trying to help the average person, but that's my take on it. What is explain this whole thing and what they get and all of that good stuff.
Dude, thank you so much for the shout. This was not pre-discussed, by
No,
the
no, no,
way.
it wasn't. Of course not.
Well, I used to a lot of caddies. I love to play golf, and a lot of caddies get to know me, and they say, "Hey, will you teach me how to trade?" And I see people in restaurants, and they like, "Hey, can you tell me how to?" And so I was kind of talking to a lot of people. I'm like, I'm running. This is going back 3, 4, 5 years, and I didn't have time to talk to so many people for 30 minutes, once a month. And then a guy approached me and he said, let's do a newsletter together. And I felt like I could teach a lot of people how to trade in scale. And so
Hmm.
this report, it gives you a lot of buy points and ideas and, exposure and everything. But I also answer everybody's question almost one-on-one on Wednesday. I allow any subscriber to ask me one question on Wednesday, and I will take questions for as long as it takes to answer them. It's a teaching service. It's not the fish. I try to give the fishing pole. Now I do give pivot points, but this whole thing may be changing radically because my funds have grown, and now the SEC I'm having to register, and they're super particular about what I state publicly and what my funds are doing, and they're like the information that you're giving in the report should be reserved for your investors and your funds. So this is going to change a little bit in the future, but uh, I love teaching people. Like I think you are like the teacher, the professor of Can Slim. And if I wasn't running these hedge funds, like let's just assume I was independently, I was retired, I would like to go and teach at a community college or something. Adjunct or teacher, because when I teach, it makes me better.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for if you guys want to subscribe, anybody hears this, use the code IBD for some amount of discount on the bundle. I'm not sure what it is. And it's 2 weeks free. Thank you for the shout out, man.
Dude, of course, man. Look, first of all, I actually thinking about maybe doing say I don't have my MBA. I just have, my econ degree. So it's kind of tough to be at a normal college, but I will um I might teach at a junior college or something like that. I think it would be so much fun. I love teaching. Like it is my Bill forced me to teach through the workshops. I told him no. Like that was the only time I ever told him no, and then he forced me to do it. So it was either I taught the seminars with him, and he said he's like, Mike, this stuff backwards and forwards. Why don't you want to do it? I'm like, Bill, I'm scared to death to talk. He's like, what do you mean you're scared? And he just didn't understand being scared. But I think you're a natural educator. I think you're so motivating and positive, and I think that's just contagious. And really, your prices, and I'm just being honest. Like I think they should be higher for what you put out there.
Oh,
It's
you know,
on the low side. Wait,
I just want to talk about Bill and how I became. I've always been an optimist, but talking to Bill and reading the 10 criteria for success in life a lot, dude. I owe all my market success to Bill, and I own a lot of my optimistic attitude. I've always been an optimist and a happy person, but Bill was so influential to me. But beyond that, Bill asked you to speak because I believe like you're the vault of preserved information after Bill's passing. You know more than you had. If I have a question, I call you, and I try not to bother you too much, but I like talking to you. And if I'm like, God, what would Bill say? And I ask myself that. And if I generally know what I think he'd say, but if I don't, I text you or call you. So I'm
well,
also
and
afraid to
you're
send you
always.
the Roper report too much because I'm afraid you're going to see mistakes in it.
No, I honestly, a lot of my friends send me their stuff they do, and I appreciate it. but I just don't have the time to look at them. So, if you ever say, hey, I gave you a shout out in this, I'll go and look at it. But I just don't have, I just don't, man, just time is that thing, man. Cause we're both, I remember being with you on your 55th birthday. It's going to be my 55th birthday this summer. And we're getting friggin' old, man. How did that happen? Like, how old are you? Like 89 now?
It's like that song, like Talking Heads. It's
Say
the
that again?
Talking Heads. How did I get this wonderful wife? How did I
Yeah.
get this big? It's like the Talking Heads song.
Yeah.
How did I
Yeah.
get this wonderful house? How did I get this wonderful? How did I get to be 61 years old?
Oh my God, man. It just goes by so quickly. And I think that changes when you're younger, you're just thinking like, these are the things I want to achieve. And then once you realize if you have things in life happen to you where you are very much aware of your mortality, because I am every single day, I'm like, okay, I'm blessed to get this day. This is what do I want to do? Do I want to do it chasing more money, or do I want to do it doing something that I'm going to be happy with on my deathbed of and that's why I came back to IBD, and that's why I'm doing these things and things that are rewarding to you that's how I look at it. And I think that's why you're doing the Roper report too, because your time is better spent researching for the the other people's money that you're running, because you're running real size with your hedge fund. You're much better off doing that. But Bill was much better off. I told him too. I'm like, we should have just shut down and been a hedge fund. He didn't like that. I'll just leave it there. We can get into that. You're welcome back anytime. We could get back into that at a different time. But he wanted to have the newspaper, and the newspaper was really a two-purpose thing: is one, to help people, and two, for his political message that he was trying to. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like, we can't, even though I don't want to get into politics, that was why he kept the newspaper. Half of the reason why he kept the newspaper around, and to help people. Whenever, and I say it all the time, but I don't think people understand it. When the two of us would discover something through our research, the first thing he would think of, it wasn't like, let me give it to Roppel or Hebner or whoever. It was, let me put it in the newspaper, that he was charging $1 a day for, or whatever it was, because he wanted to help the masses. I get a sense that that's what you're about too.
I mean, I'm not afraid of another dollar, but I am in it. Well, I love to teach. I finished the Wednesday night question and answer and strategy thing, and I'm ramped up. I'm like saying to my wife, "Let's go out to dinner," because I'm all excited. I love doing it. But I think I like to slow down my pace and my leverage and enjoy life. I mean, I'm not afraid to make more money at all, but I want to enjoy a more balanced life than I had. I literally would drive to the local paper depot and get the paper at midnight and read it until 1 in my car in the parking lot. So when the market opened the next day, I already crushed the whole thing. I mean, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Well,
I
that's
was,
good,
I
because
was
your life is
lunatic.
too
I
short
was
for that,
all
brother. Yeah, I think we both
it
were
is. I
like
want to see
that.
my friends. I'm going to dinner with one of my best friends.
Good for you, man. You got to come down to Austin one of these
I
days.
would
I'll
zoom
have to make it up. Wait, are you in Chicago these days? Did you move?
both. I just
Both.
bought a place. I well, I'm but I have my daughter lives in Dallas, so I
Okay.
should roll down. I'll come see her for a few days, and maybe I'll blast down to Austin and hang with you for a while.
Yeah, that would be cool. Or going up to Dallas for a concert in May. But I'm only up there for one day, because then I'm coming back and flying. But we'll work something. We'll work something out. But I want to ask you, because I've been talking too much, and people want to hear from you. What would you say your favorite Bill story was, that you learned from, that wasn't about the market, and then separately one that was about the market?
Well, the one about humility. I mean, another thing is when he said to me, "Hey, we all put our legs on one leg at a time." That is the most profound non-market thing is be humble live below your means. He talked to me. He would say, save your money. Don't do crazy shit. Bill's clothing, I could see he wore the same suit. And I'd only see him in person like, 3 times a year. And I could say sometimes he had the exact same clothes on. He was
Yeah.
frugal. He was humble. He never was braggadocious, ever. That's another thing. When I see somebody, I meet him in a restaurant and we're talking about the market and they're like, I'm the greatest. I'm like, you're either lying to me or about to lose all your money.
Yeah.
So that's and then the market lesson, Webby, there's so many. I can't even, like one defining. I think he yelled at me one time when we had a foul. He literally called me. I'm on the golf course and I could almost hear it in his voice. What are you doing on the golf course? He's like, what stocks did you buy? And I go, well, I haven't bought any. And I could just hear the
Wow.
disappointment. Like it wasn't like he was teaching me politely, but he was pissed. He was disappointed. He's like, well, and I'm like, Bill, I've been screening and I can't find anything back. So he goes, buy some Bristol Myers or whatever, some like very mundane pedestrian stocks. Like, I don't care. He's like, you have to put money to work today. And, I know we're not supposed to talk about the current market, but like I was a little slow to get long. And I think if Bill was here, he'd be pissed that I don't have the exposure should have, or I should have unhedged a lot faster than I did. So that's how about, okay, you tell me, I told you two, you tell me one personal, one market.
Well, as far as your thing about humility, and then I'll answer those, was what I loved about him was well, so many things, but on what you were saying about the same suit and everything, when we would travel together for workshops, we would, he would be in coach with us and he would sit back with me many times. And then we would work the whole time. Like, it would annoy everyone under the sun. I remember one time they took a limo for one thing, and because it was cheaper than buying, like getting 3 cabs, it would just put all of us in, and he got so upset. He's like, "We do not do limos," and he was so anti, you know, that, and his house, even though it was on a beautiful piece of property, it was a tear down until, not long before he retired and when they, tore it down and built it up nice, but he just didn't care about those things, but he did care about people, and so I guess the thing that I learned about him was he would help people, but he would keep it on the down low. Like there were people around the office that didn't have the means because he didn't pay us well to go to a nice gym, and they were really excessively obese. And he would on the down low, he would pay for them to go to his own gym as long as they went and not talk about it. Now, some people would do that and like brag, like, oh, well, I'm paying for so and so's gym membership and pat me on the back. But he would do those types of things as well as help out with animal shelters because he was a big dog person like I am. And he would, he donated a lot of money to those things. So that was on that side of things, plus just caring about Americans. Like he really, it's not that he disliked other countries, but he really believed that America was the best, which I do too, and I know you do. And he wanted to promote that as much as possible. And he loved people coming from around the world, coming here and living the American dream. And he was just for capitalism, and he was so wrapped up into them. People don't know he wrote a book. Do you have his first book, his political book? Do you have a copy of that? It's like out of print.
I don't think I do. I haven't
Okay.
read it.
Yeah, it's his
Dude, I had
little
the
thin
audio
thing, but
version in person.
oh, yeah, that's true. Well, this was back in the Jimmy Carter
I do
days.
have it.
But
I do have it.
okay. So that was really his mission that we don't normally talk about because politics are it's so divisive these days, and like that's a whole different thing. But as far as in the market was absolutely his flexibility because we would talk Sunday night and we'd talk about every Sunday night for a couple hours. And that's how we would do the managed. Like at first the Nesme list it was Gil, Lee and myself. And then eventually Gil left the firm and then Lee got, he had made so much money. He's like, I don't want to deal with it. So it was just Bill and I. And so we would manage the list, and it would be Sunday nights and throughout the week. But when we talk, I could see how negative he would be on a Sunday night. Like the world's coming to an end, the charts would look terrible, blah, blah, blah. Tuesday would come around, there would be a follow through day. He didn't care what he just said. What would happen is we would talk and get kind of our game plan on Sunday night, decide what names we're going to remove from Nesme, which ones we're going to add, and then what the talking points were. Then the next morning, he would talk to the institutional clients and his sales reps, and that message would get out to everybody. And were you on those Monday calls? Or okay, so and that was really our
Dude, I
message.
would get this. I'd get the facts and the call.
Okay, perfect. That was really our
I used
message.
to I got them both.
Oh, good. My name got left off of that, and that was fine. And I think he enjoyed, like, whatever. It is what it is. So he would say that out to all of our clients, and all of our clients weren't fast like you. Most of them were or mutual funds, which are much slower and long only. And so if our sales reps went out on Monday, it was like, Bill's very negative, and this, and all this distribution, blah blah blah, and they would have to sell that message. And then come Tuesday, there's a follow through day, and if Bill's putting 20 names on the list, or we are, and super bullish, and then now they have to go to their clients, and they didn't want to, and I wouldn't blame them, because Bill would live in the moment. He would pound the table on how we believed it was at the time, and that allowed me to realize that's the right way to do it, because that's what I looked at. Bill was the living Livermore, and that was really so special, that you got time with them and I got time with them. And those of us who were fortunate enough to be around him is the closest we'll ever get to being around somebody like a Livermore. And it was just learning that flexibility and not caring what you said before. And that is, I don't care at all. Like, I don't care. Say, I can tell you how I look at the market right now, and the facts change, you change with it. But what happens to most people is that ego. They're like, I was bullish or I was bearish before. And now, even though the facts have changed, I need to prove that I'm bearish and then go more in depth into that, because I don't want to be wrong. And I think they do that on a subconscious level. What do you think?
I think 100% right. It's almost like the more successful you are in another field, you get an ego, and then you think you're going to tell the market how it's going to work. And then you're down 100 grand on your brainchild. And if you have to sell that for 100,000 loss, you're admitting you're wrong and you've never been wrong. But I want to go back to Bill and
Sure.
humility.
Yep.
I think because he was humble, he traded for the right reasons, not for the accolades or for the money, or for he was more pure in his endeavor. So the market didn't have a whole lot to expose. I think if you're impulsive or greedy or fearful or whatever your proclivities are, the market's going to expose that. And I think he was just a grounded dude. But it was easier for him. I don't know. It's never easy, but that's just an opinion.
Well, I think
The other thing I wanted to say about
but I'm sorry that for
you
people who are
said,
watching this, the internet connection, there's a lag between the two of us. That's why I keep on stepping on his toes. Go ahead.
I think people think that this method is about the exact pivot. And I don't think that's true. I think Bill was incredibly successful, sometimes waiting to see that it was completely broken out. So it was the market was supporting it. It's more up here. It's such a psychological game. My trainer today is like, how'd what do you, I'm like, dude, it's 5 books. Everybody has access to these 5 books, but people can't implement them. There's a couple secrets, but there's not many secrets. The rules are in Livermore's book, Bill's book, and one or two others.
Mhm.
It's that people can't implement them. They don't, their head game, that's the game. Whether you buy it, I don't want to buy extended, okay? But if you buy it a little bit, 1, 2, 3% extended, that's not gonna make or break you. So there's just a lot of opinions. What were you gonna ask, or what were you thinking?
No, no, no. I agree with you, and I'm sorry. I forgot what I was. I honestly forgot what I was thinking. Well, let me go to a couple questions, because some folks put on Twitter or X some different questions, and let me for you, and let me go there and let's see. Okay, so what are the top 2 or 3 things you would tell a younger you to focus on, um, that would help you, in a big way? I'll just summarize these. The younger you. So just
I
picture
would
that you
say
don't have gray hair anymore, dude.
the younger me wanted to get rich.
Okay.
Dude, I'm gonna bleach it. No, I'm gonna dark color it. Um, I would say don't run. Don't be trying to make money in the first year or 2 or 3. Try to learn the system and implement with discipline. I think if you run too hard, when you fall, it's gonna be really, really painful. And if you look at it as a 40-year compounding endeavor, you don't have to worry about it a day. You know, it's by the way, we are in such a monster super cycle. I have this chart I'm gonna post up. We're in a if you look at like what McKinsey says, we're in like a 60-year build out that has it's gonna have so many rolling cycles in it that if you screw up today or this week or this month, it's no big deal. The golden goose is gonna throw so many more fastball pitches. Webby, think about since the day you started in the market at O'Neill, how many TMLs you've seen. Take
Mhm.
that number and multiply because I believe it's never going to stop. So be super bullish, be an optimist. Don't try to run immediately. Try to learn. If you say, hey, I need to build a house or buy a car, it's going to hinder you. Think
Mhm.
about, I have 10 grand or 5 grand or whatever you have, and I'm going to compound that money for 50 years. If you're 25 years old, you're going to live, if you're 25 today, you're almost certain to live to over 100. So you're going to compound, take that number and compound by 20% for 50 years. Don't run. What do you think?
Well, dude, that's such a great response that you have. And I would say very similar to learn the system, to not try to make money, but to try to learn the system because we both know that you can lose money on a good trade and you can make money on a bad trade. And that is probably the most important thing for people to realize. And then I always tell people, let's say you're running with whatever amount, like whatever the amount is that's big to you that you're going to start off with, start trading and fill in the blank. Because I don't like saying numbers because what is big for someone is small for another and vice versa. So you take your number and I would say, take that, put it in an account, take 90% of that and put it in a cash account, separate where you can't trade, and only trade with that 10% because you can't trade with no money because then there's no emotion involved. But just trade with a little bit because you're going to make mistakes. But really, I think the goal is wait until you like double or triple that account and you think you're God, which probably happened to both of us. And then you get your head handed to you and you realize, oh my God, I'm not, I got lucky and whatever, whatever. And then you've got to build it back. So I say, wait until you have a big drawdown and then you can make it back up into new highs. Then slowly start taking that money that you set aside because then you've truly learned and it's not going to be as painful. Because if you put everything you have, because I started out with $540. That was after selling my CDs, and it took me 6 months to even get $540. No joke. Um, so I know what it is to start off with nothing, and but really just I would just say don't try to make money. So especially the first couple of years, which is so like counterintuitive to so many people. They're like, "Oh wait, the book says how to make money in stocks." And what do you mean don't try to make money? You try to make percent and always think in terms of percent because you might end up like you running a big hedge fund and then you're also trading your personal account which is going to be as a fraction of that and then you might be trading an account for your daughter or something that's even smaller, much smaller than that. You always think in terms of percent, like, okay, my max is 23% across the board. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, eh, Nearly every single thing you said, I agree with, all of it. But I think it's very difficult to run a hedge fund and have almost all my net worth is in my hedge fund, like 90% of it or something like that, because my kids' accounts, they boom and bust because I never look at them. And
Yeah.
my personal accounts, I really just don't trade. What I'll do is I'll save up a lot of money in there, and we'll get into some kind of really brutal bear market every 5 years. And when I think we're getting close to the bottom, I'll go in and because I can't compete against my hedge fund, my personal account. So when we're in a bad bear trend, I know I can't buy for 3 days. So we'll have a flush and I'll go put up some money to work at the bottoms. But back to what you said, think about getting rich over 50 years. So the first 2 or 3 years, let me ask you, do you know anybody who's been a monster success who hasn't like blown themselves up once or twice at least?
No, because even Bill blew up. Like people don't realize that his O'Neill fund back in the day, he had to shut down after massive losses, and it wasn't talked about much. But it always made me feel better when I've had my tough times. Is going, wow, it happened to Bill, and that was the year. That was a year after he was the number one portfolio manager for a mutual fund back in the day. I think it was like 66 or 67, and then he took a hit. And so I think anybody who's being honest is really taking a big hit in their accounts. I certainly have many times over my career, and you learn more from that. Like when you finally get back to new highs, you go, shoot, I don't want to do that again, man. Like that was brutal. And then you end up doing it again. You're like, okay, well, I'm not gonna well, it's that cycle of learning. But yeah, if, you don't really know unless you've hurt yourself. You don't know how hot that stove is. What do you think?
I think that you're even nearly perfect practitioners, people who implement nearly perfectly are going to have bad moments, bad periods. And you have to have belief in yourself and belief in the system. If you don't believe in yourself or the system, it's not going to work. But if you when you do have the inevitable down periods, be optimistic that it will turn up again. So don't never give up, ever give up. But I promise you, the system works. Believe in yourself and be patient for the next upcycle. Don't be in a when you screw up because you're going to screw up. I've screwed up. Even last year, I had a hiccup, and I still ended up really good for the year. But you're going to get more at bats. The golden goose is going to whip more fastballs at you. It's never going to stop. So never give up.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Let's see. What's in the new high list that you're focusing on? Okay, that's a current thing. Let's see. These are all like current questions. We can't do those. We're trying to stay away from the current stuff. I want to listen to you guys debate about volume. No, that would be 6 hours long. We're going to agree to disagree on volume, and that's totally
Well, we do. We don't.
okay.
We mostly agree. Mostly
Oh, okay.
90% of what you say, I agree with.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to just leave it there because that's a
I've been
good way.
listening.
Okay. So I think that kind of made me think about because you were saying some of the books, so I think we would agree. Reminiscence of the Stock Operator, Jesse's how to trade in stocks, Bill's How to Make Money in Stocks, Darvis's book. Those are the core ones. The other book that I'd say is really a series, and that's the Market Wizard series that I'd listen to over and over and over again. That you really, I think the key takeaway there is that there's so many different ways of trading. Like, and they had commodity people, they had bond people, they had stock people, they had all sorts of things. And that's where it's so important that you have your very specific way of doing things for this point in your career. And I have my way of doing things at this point in my career, and they're wildly different and very similar at the same time. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just it meshes with your personality. Is that you got to figure out with your lifestyle, your goals, and your personality. You got to go with the grain, not against it. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. It must agree with your disposition, your genetic makeup. You can't force if you're a value investor, you're never going to be a growth investor. But in the Market Wizards books, and honestly, of the bigger, more successful hedge fund managers I've met, all but one is a trend follower. Michael Steinhardt was a pure fundamentalist, and he
Okay.
just had a knack for tape reading, but he wasn't a trend. He was a Druck, Soros, Webby, Bill, Charles, the greats almost exclusively are trend followers.
Yeah, I think
And those 5 books you mentioned are absolutely
well, what other ones and I did do an entire episode on my favorite books if anyone wants to watch those, but what other books would you say are some of your favorites? And they don't have to be about stocks. It could be because sometimes you learn more about yourself by reading something else that isn't about stocks, but it makes you a better trader.
I think the book that I've read 50, 30 times is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's almost
Okay.
impossible to be a big success without a team. And if you don't know how to treat people, if you don't know how to motivate them, you don't want people fighting you along the way. And I'll tell you the ugly version of that is the 48 laws of power, which I feel is you can use these things for good or bad, but you need to know about the world. Those are amazing. But here's the thing. You do not need more than 5 books. You need to reread the same 5 books, but when you start if you go, "Oh, I read the book, and then I read a GARP book, and I read a value book, and I read a" just stick with what a you don't need 5 books, you need to reread the same books. It's kinda like disciplining children. You read a book, you try to implement the method for 3, 4 weeks, the kid doesn't follow line, so you get another book in a different system, and you read that, and you try and you're never gonna you have to be concentrated on your efforts in one method that you agree with for decades, not for 9 months or 3 weeks. It may not work. We might get into a bear market and can slim will work because you should be in cash, but you have to compound over decades if you want to get to where you want to go.
I would totally agree with that. And I'll say one book, I'm curious if you've read it, because it's actually my favorite book above Bill's and above Livermore's is David Goggins, both of his books, but his first one. Have you read his? No. Okay.
I've
You got,
listened to him on podcasts and
okay.
I'm inspired,
Well, listen to,
but I haven't read the book
don't read the
yet.
book. Actually do the audio book because it's done in a very unique way where he reads a chapter, or his co-writer reads a chapter, and then they do a little mini podcast about the chapter, and then they go to the next one. And I've gone through that several times, and it is the most my story growing up and trying to get the job with Bill and things afterwards, really so many parallels with Goggins that I guess it really resonated with me because he was the only person that really had it as hard as I did. That so many things I can't talk about. That it was like, wow, it's like someone else. And like what you said is you don't ever give up, and then that's something he never gave up. Okay, well, let's go to the next question. I would love to know the specific way Jim's approach differs from Bill's, and then it goes on from there. So, what would you say that is the most different about what you do than what Bill would have done?
I believe the Japanese had it right. In the early days, they didn't innovate. They took a American made or a German made product, disassembled it, and knocked it off. I'm just a knockoff. I spent my life trying to clone Bill. Like I
Right.
do think he was a more frenetic trader than me, but I really just tried to. I felt like if I was half as successful as Bill, I'd be just fine. And so like I said, like the reps see me, they'd be like, Jim, you implement it kind of like just like like you're supposed to.
Yeah.
I don't deviate. I I I I have a question for you. I'm off track.
Yeah, dude. There's no
Did you
track, man.
build
Okay, wait.
Wanda?
I want to just say for people who are watching this, I'm going to answer your question, but for people watching this going, why this? Why not that? These hangouts are just me just
Wanda?
hanging out with someone. They're not an interview. There's no preset question. Well, there's one preset question. We're going to get to that at the end. These are all my notes. Your favorite album and your favorite song off of it. That's it. That's all I got going for you. So, what was your question you were going to ask? Don't you dare tell me
So
that it
when I
is.
look at the buttons on the top,
Yeah.
I won't. I'm going to play by the rules. I'm going to color in the lines for the first time in my whole life. I want to know when I see the across the top, did Bill prioritize those on how he wanted them? So I
They,
look at Wanda as he directed you to build the tool for him. Like it's
So
data block, quarterly, everything going all the way down, institutional holding, every block across the top. I believe those are the main criteria for him.
yeah, so
Yes or no?
we designed and redesigned and redesigned and redesigned. Had so much fun. If folks don't know, I was senior VP over at O'Neill and the director of research and development for a while. During that, besides the model books and things like that, I would build products and print products, as well as Wanda was already built before me, but I really took it to next level, in my opinion. And each one of those things, and we had a lot of in-house stuff that only the two of us would use, or a few of us would use, where we had to be entitled to use that thing. And so we would build those things first, and then if we liked them, we would iterate on it. Bill was always into iterating, like making it better, making it better. When it was good enough, then he'd say, okay, we'll go out to the client. So what he would do is, it was annual earnings in a big way, 3 years of increasing earnings. That was the most important thing. Then he would also be looking at annual estimates, and that was a big deal for him that people don't realize. And then the most recent quarter. Now he would look at more than one quarter, but it was really about that current quarter and the 3 year. If there was a defect in the 3 year growth rate, it was like a no go. He would circle it. You probably have some markings of it. Let's say that of the last 3 years, it went $1 in earnings, 75 in earnings, then $1.50 in earnings. He wouldn't play. He would circle that middle one that was down. No, you have to 3 years of increasing earnings minimum, bare minimum. He liked the return on equity of 17%, but he had or statements for that. There was not really an or statement for the earnings. There was a turnaround situation, which is a separate issue, but for a growth stock, 3 years plus the most recent earnings had to be positive. Like the dollar amount had to be positive, and the year over year percent had to be positive. Did that answer your question? But all the things in Wanda, that was the way he wanted it. It was always his was the final checkoff. Like, yes, doing it that way. The two of us, the institutional sponsorship on there, I mean, we modified that and modified that to get it the way
Okay.
we
We
wanted.
got to
Say again? I couldn't hear you.
This is critical.
Okay.
Institutional block is the third button. And so few people talk about prior uptrend or institutional sponsorship. They're all over pivot points and base structure and all this stuff. And I think Bill was very fundamental. And I think this is the roadmap for what Bill's pecking order of criteria. And so when people go, why is SanDisk not as good as MWD or whatever, or storage tech? It's because I didn't miss SanDisk. I let it go. It didn't have the earnings. But then I reflect back and I go, that was the most violent breakout, the very, very first one that I should have overrode and committed. But anyway, I think like the variables on Wanda, like comp rating, I think people are wildly underrating that and not utilizing what is on MarketSmith or whatever Market Surge. I don't think they
Well, I
give
built
these
I
variables the
he loved the comp rating, which I'm glad, since I built it for him. And in that took over what the data graph rating was, which was his original rating that did the same thing. It was an overall rating. And he called me up one Saturday and left me a message saying, Mike, we need an overall rating. People are confused, blah, blah, blah. And I'd already built one for him for the stock doc, but he didn't go on the internet. And even though he was happy with that rating, he wanted something in the newspaper. He's like, no, for some reason he couldn't wrap his head around we could just take the stock doc rating and put it in the newspaper. He wanted an overall rating. So I reapproached that, did that, no direction from him other than people. His direction was, people are confused when you have a high EPS and a low SMR and a medium this and a medium that, come up with just one number. So I racked my brain, came up with it, and that ended up being his favorite thing. And then he called me up one day. He's like, Mike, I don't want you to ever recommend a stock to me as a comp under 88, period. And so I never did. And the books that we both got over the weekend.
well,
Say again?
I think 88 is low.
88 was the kind of 92 was kind of more the sweet spot. 88 was the low. It was the lowest that that he would go, at least from a screening standpoint. Now he would still do it every once in a while, less than that, but there were special situations. And I will just say, I just redesigned all of the ratings at IBD Market Surge. That'll be coming out next weekend. That's our scheduled thing, as well as improved all of them, but I also improved the composite rating with something that I'm very happy about. I think you're going to really dig all of these things that'll be out next week. So I think you'll like that. But going back to the sponsorship thing, the two of us worked on that so much. And I remember we were knee deep in redesigning that. And my ex was at Cedars dealing with a pretty serious surgery at the time. And I'm there and I've got little twins at home that my parents were watching. And he calls me up and he wants to fax that sponsorship stuff to the hospital so I could work on it while I was there waiting for a surgery. And that's what I did. That was Bill for you. So that sponsorship I take very seriously, the way we designed it, and eventually we'll do the same thing on Market Surge. But the way we had it, and it was, well, it was very specific, and I'll talk about that when we redesign it. But what we would do when we would go over a stock together, we would start off with a monthly chart, analyze that first before the weekly or the daily. Then before we'd go to the weekly, we'd immediately go to the sponsorship. And one of his things was, it wasn't the way people think. It wasn't the number of funds. He didn't look at that at all. That, increasing. That's how he used to teach way back when, but he dropped that a long time ago. It was about the quality of it. So was the fund managers that he cared about, were they in there? Because he looked at sponsorship as another fundamental measure, just like liquidity as a fundamental measure. He would say, if they all looked at it, and the Fidelities of the world have every CEO and CFO coming to them. They don't even have to go out. And if they've all passed it up, then why does he want to buy it? And then on top, there was a reverse thing where there were fund managers that he did not respect. And I won't mention the fund families, but if they were in there buying it, he would not want to play because he said they don't know what they're doing. And they did, I don't want to put anybody on a blast, but and he looked at it that way. How do you look at sponsorship?
I think that my sponsorship block is out of date, but
Okay.
I think I wanna see building positions, and I wanna know who. I wanna know that they've have a hot hand right now, but, I'm listening to you speak about Bill, and the one thing that just kind of shines through is selectivity.
Hmm.
I just think Bill was super selective, and if you stick with a 99 comp rating, you're gonna eliminate a lot of blowups. The stocks that end up blowing up are almost always stocks that have spotty earnings, low ROE, low pre-taxers. They don't meet the threshold of 20% across. He says 70% across. I say 20% across the board. You get into a company that's 99 comp with 20% pre-tax, 20% ROE, 100% quarterly sales and earnings growth, you're in a high quality name.
Yep.
Could
Yep.
some blow up? They will, but you're going to eliminate a lot of major problems.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's that selection thing, and also doing the more liquid, because the way he would look at it is say, okay, if something was illiquid, now there are exceptions, right? There's the Taser, which is Axon now, but and back in the day, if you remember his first two versions of how to make money in stocks, he was focused on small cap stocks. And I'd done a lot of work. Small cap stocks, if you do it on a mass in an automated fashion, they have better performance, but that's not what he was after. He was after the quality ones that would have the that's when you're doing a shotgun thing. But if you're doing a concentrated thing, he would want the liquidity, one, because when he was in Pick and Save and Price Company back in the day, he got to the point where he was afraid that if he started selling, that he was going to break the company wide open. And I think we both had positions that were too big for the stock that we were in. You're running a lot of money, and I ran a fair amount of money back in the day, and it was you would get up to this point where you're like, oh, shoot, like I've got X% of the average daily volume. If I need to get out of this, I'm really dead. And I think that's what kept him alive and from blowing up is he started, even though his heart was really in the small caps, and that's what his stuff was based on. He switched and morphed into the mega caps and the large caps because of their liquidity. Really. Let me see. Let me find another
I
question here. Oh, go ahead. Okay. Next question is
Let's
how
do
do
another
you
question.
how do you maintain motivation and discipline in the face of markets like we endured since last September? I mean, I had a really hard time from last October. I just my style was so out of favor, just getting chopped up. That's because I'm swing trading a lot, and it was a terrible swing trading environment with my style. But when you go through difficult times, how do you stay motivated? Because you're always happy and always motivated. I'm being serious. You are like
I
you're
know
the one
history.
person. Like if a rope pulls around, we're like, okay, it's going to put us all in a good mood.
I stay optimistic in bear markets because I know history. I know that I know the American way is the right way. I know that humans want to excel. They want a piece of the pie, and they're never going to stop innovating. So there are guys in a garage or a laboratory around my house coding, splitting genes, splitting atoms, inventing products that are going to make our lives better. They're going to have to go public because I need to build a factory and a sales force. It's going to have a perfect cup and handle. It's going to have triple digit sales, triple digit earnings, and they're never going to stop coming because we're America and we're humans who want to elevate. So you get into a bad period, it's a day, it's just a minute, and it might be 9 months, a really bad bear market, a little over a year or more. But the the whole time the Iran war's been going
Mhm.
on, these innovators didn't stop doing anything.
Yeah.
They don't even watch the paper. They're trying to
Right.
build a new product. They're trying to change the world. And those guys are all going to come public, or they're going to eventually come public. And I don't see an end to that cycle. I'm just an optimist on America. I'm an optimist on humans. I'm an optimistic on capitalism. It's virtuous. And I see, I kind of have this like thing about, the golden goose is never going to stop unless it's suffocated by socialism. And I
Oh
don't
my
see that. There's a lot
Don't
of
let us go
efforts
down the
that can
don't let us
happen.
go down that road because we will go down and and
Yeah, look,
we'll get so much hate.
look, my buddy gave me the Buddha. Okay. So when I have a wicked day and I have a stock that misses earnings, and then my other stocks go down 4 or 5% each, and I'm on margin and it's a big loss. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've come back every single time. I know the future. I read some of the books that you discussed, and I have to close them because I know what's going to happen. The more I read it, the next chapter is like, oh, the new bull market started. And I'm like, yes, we're going to have one. And a Cisco is going to come out. A Starbucks is going to come out. A Blackberry. It's whatever your loss is, what's upsetting you, the troubles, it's just a minute. It will change. If you write down, I go to a shrink, I hit the couch,
Mhm.
and sometimes I'll take a little journal. And when I go and talk to her, I'm like, God, I don't even care about this anymore. And I was super disappointed or upset about this. The greatest healer of problems, bear markets, is time. I'm
Yeah.
finished.
No, no,
What do you think? How do you stay optimistic?
well, time is a thing that they say heals all wounds, and I hope that's true. We will see how that plays out. But how I stay optimistic, I mean, I I am a worrywart. Like I truly am. I always and Bill and I would talk about that because we were like he was a person I told the first person I told when I found out that was we were going to be having twins and how nervous I was, and this was during the bear market, and he sat me down. And he's like, well, he laid out his entire the only time he really told me his full story from kind of beginning to end, and he went through and he's and one thing after another when when he was in the army and in Alaska and blah 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 and at Hayden Stone and all the way through, and he's like, and Mike, I never worried. I knew that it was going to work out, and when he started the paper, he knew it was going to work out. When he started this or the other thing, and he was just that eternal optimist. So that was that was a good thing to have as a role model. But the reality is I'm wired to worry. Like, and I do worry because I have had a lot of bad things happen to me in my life, and I always have. And so you also have to deal with reality and um you have be protective, just in case those things happen. And I don't think he really had those bad things happen to him. So sometimes it's a way of what your life history is. But as far as being optimistic, I just love the market. Like, I love the freaking market, and I want to figure it out. And my goal at this point isn't figuring it out to make a bunch of money, because at this point in my life, it's like I want to figure it out and leave it. And that's why I'm doing these, is to leave something for my kids if they ever get into trading, or when they have kids, if they get into trading. And that's what the Webby Rambles on is about, is taking what's up here and just giving it out for free, because I wanted it someplace where they would have access to it, and anyone else who wanted to. And that's my motivation, is really to figure it out and to help, because I remember how hard it was. Learning was difficult. You remember there was no YouTube, there was nothing, there was no one holding our hand when you and I learned, right?
Well, yes, totally true. I learned from you, Bill, Charles, David Ryan, but
Mhm.
you said, why do you do it? I'll tell you why I do. I again, I'm not afraid of the money at all, but I'm well past that. What I love is doing the research, understanding the combination of the weather, the politics, the trend of the market, the earnings, the innovation, putting it all together, finding the proper base, and then betting it. And when it works, they say, oh, the sport of kings is horse racing. It's yachting. It's whatever. There's nothing that compares the feeling of success when you do all the work and you grind it out and you deal with all the stop outs, and then you get one, and then you get it in size, and you pyramid it up, and then it blows out and it bases again. There's no World Cup, there's no yachting race, there's no race car F1. There's nothing. Nothing pays like this. Nothing is fulfilling. There's no mental challenge like this. Nothing compares. That's why I do it. The money, I'm all bring more, great. But the feeling of being right
Mhm.
after all the work, that's to me. And then, of course, I love to teach. I love the whole thing. It's like
Yeah.
I won't even play. People won't put me in tournament golf. Our club I play in a tournament a
Okay.
lot, and they won't even play me. They're like, if the tee time is 1 o'clock Central Time, you've lost your match by the time the market's closed, and then you'll turn it on and you'll do great. But they won't. I care so much more about the market than anything else, except for my kids and my wife.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, that's, family first, and then the market. But yeah, I think you nailed it. Is a mental challenge of you've done the work, and then it does what you think it should do, and that's so rewarding, more so than the money or percent or anything. Is just being like, okay, I've seen this before. And I mean, I look at so many charts a day, because each chart I look at it's not to find new merchandise, which is part of it, but it is to learn. Like, every single chart, whether it's an intraday, daily, weekly, or monthly, I'm trying to cement that in my mind, going, okay, when this happens, what tends to happen? And so the goal for me is figuring out what's normal and natural. Like, you give me a chart and I go, okay, I can't predict what's going to happen the next day, but I can tell you if it's normal, it should do this. And if it's abnormally strong or weak, it will do this. And the only way to do that is to look at a freaking million charts, man. I hear so many people who are like, say what sounds good, but I can just tell if you've looked at a bunch of charts, or you have it, by how you say things. And I know you've looked at a bunch of charts, and I love having you on. If you come back, I would love you to, I'm going to put you on the spot right now, but if you say no, I'll edit it out. But will you come back? Because I've got so many
Of
other questions here. I should have like pre-read them ahead
course,
of. Okay, great. So we're we'll wrap up so
of
I don't
course.
burn you out, so you can come back. But let's leave some people with some kind of tangible things to improve their trading. So if you were, let's talk to three groups of people and then we'll move on to the music stuff. So we're going to have you talk to the people who are just starting out, the people that have been doing it for maybe 3 to 5 years, and then the people that have been doing it for, a long time. So for the newbies that are just starting in their first maybe 3 years of their learning curve, what advice would you have for them?
Just the three basics. Cut your losses. Don't overtrade. Position size. Price will hurt you, but size will kill you. Just cut your losses. Don't overtrade. Don't buy extended. If you could just get those three things down and then increase your selection criteria. I think that's for the rookie.
Good.
You need to
Okay.
get those down and really, really consistent.
And I would agree with that because when you're first starting out,
Intermediate term,
well, for the folks who are first starting out, what I would suggest they do, going along with what you were saying of is extended, don't buy extended. They might not know what extended is. So that's your goal, to figure that out and set a percent. Say, I will not buy more than X% past that perfect buy point. And if you don't know what that perfect buy point is, you cannot buy that stock because you haven't done enough work, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
for sure. For
Okay.
sure. I
So
totally
now the
agree.
intermediate
You got to
folk,
know and then there's extended from a pivot. There's extended from a pivot, and then there's extended on a gap up, like a explosive gap up. I'll buy it 25% up.
yeah, me too. Yeah. Like, so
That's
how,
intermediate term, I suppose.
so I want to address that because the buying way up, and I know you like to sell at 3, 5, 7%. And that's what you still do, right? Like that you cut something at 3%, cut more at
Yep.
5, and then goes down 7, you're out. So with that, when you buy something up 25%, when I do that, I go into it going, I'm going to get stopped out, and I'll have to buy it back maybe 3 times before I'm going to get that traction. How do you approach something you've been watching? You didn't have a position in it before the earnings. Now it's way up there. It's it looks great. The earnings are great. Um, how do you tactically do that? Are you doing a TWAP? Are you doing a percent of volume? Are you buying what exactly are you doing?
Let's just say it's an earnings report, and after hours, it's a blowout. It's up 15%. I'll
Mhm.
go in and buy 15, 20% if I have no shares, what I want total. Next morning, if it's still up and maybe hopefully a little higher in pre-market, I'll buy 10% more.
Okay.
But the markets have been fading so much in the first 30 to 45 minutes in the last 4 or 5 years. I won't buy much more. I won't buy hardly any more until after the first 30 minutes to an hour. If
Okay.
it's higher yet, I'll buy another 20%, 15, 20%. As the day progresses, I might buy a stock 7 times in a day.
Oh yeah.
And if
Easy.
and at any point it backs off, I'll
Okay.
now if
Yeah.
it closes top tick, I might push it over 20%. But you don't want to get too heavy until after the first 45 minutes or an hour because the amount of stocks that fade and in markets in themselves is so high. And again, it's an art. If it was a mechanical system, I would write a program and I'd have everything, but it's not. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to screw it up. The stocks are going to act irregularly and it just won't work. So you just move on to the next name.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think what people have to realize is that it's normal to buy something and on the same day have to cut your loss. And then if it sets back up, to buy it back the same day. And Bill would do that. And I remember when I started doing that at the firm, and I think it was Tony who told me, and I don't want to mention any of the clients' names because, but some big clients would do the same. Big mutual fund clients that running big money, who you wouldn't think trade like that, would be in there in the morning buying it. The thing is running up, then it would be rolling over. They would be in there blowing it out, and by the end of the day, they would be buying it back. And if I told you these people, you would not believe it, But Bill would do the same thing, and I'm totally comfortable with that. But it's very hard on someone's ego to buy something at 100, sell it at 93, buy it back at 101. And then, that whole thing, and folks have to get over that. So the next question for you is, the folks have been trading maybe 3 to 10 years, so and they're successful, so they know what they're doing, but they just don't have a lot of the experience, and that just comes with time. So what advice would you give to them to kind of make up for some of that lack of experience, um, in there to help them continue on in their learning curve?
I think this goes back to the books. The first book I think you want to read is Darvis's book because it'll give you about 50% of what's in Bill's book, but you can read it in a day or two. And
Mhm.
it's a story, it's easy to read. Bill's book is the whole methodical package of of the methodology, but Reminiscences is the implementation. It's the nuances of testing a market, and subtleties that you will not understand in the first year. Like you'll read Reminiscences. Like the first time I read it, I was like, I barely understood it. But then I read it again a year later after I'd been trading, like, ooh, I do understand a little more of this because I've been in the market. And then 5 years later, and I've been saying I need to reread it now after 40 years. I will learn and I'll go, what I'll really go is, ooh, I understand why he said that because only experience. So re once you're slightly evolved, just reread the greats because the subtleties are lost on the rookie who doesn't have the experience to understand them. I mean, that's a
That that's
what do
so
you think?
that's such a good point, and I will say the same thing about like Bill's book. The first time I read it, even though it really hit home with me, I was like, "Wow, he's contradicting himself here, and he's contradicting himself here, and that doesn't make any sense." And I felt solid about that. And then you get experience, you're like, "That's what he was talking about. Now I get it." And he wasn't contradicting himself. He was giving me this gold nugget that that was so valuable if I would have just known what it was that I was reading. And then I do have a question for you about Reminiscence because I read Reminiscence or listen to it but at least once a year. Um, and How to Trade in Stocks at least once a year. Jesse Livermore's How to Trade in Stocks. Compare and contrast the two because I go back and forth between of my favorite stock books, which one is my favorite. And the How to Trade in Stocks, I got my first copy in 98 and I have yet to ever travel without it. Now I travel with the audio because the original copy that I have is falling apart and it's so special to me sentimentally that I just listen to the audio, but I would not leave. It's so golden and so small. It's smaller than Darvis's book. I mean, it's just every word in there is like so valuable. But what do you think about those two?
Well, they're okay. So these books are like treasure to me as well. And I had a pretty good year 2 years ago. And John Boik found an original How to Trade in Stocks hardcover,
No.
and it was really expensive, but I bought it, and yeah, no, I have a real original, um, and I reread it 2 years ago when I bought it right around Christmas, I think, because yeah, year end, um, dude, ugh, one is more tape reading, and the other's like putting the whole package together. Would you say that's true?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one is just so much more story, whereas the How to Trade in Stocks is very much to the point. And it's like it's almost a Cliff Notes version of
It's
it that
concentrated.
yeah, it's concentrated. Yeah. So they're both it depends on whatever.
Reminiscence is the evolution.
Yeah, that would probably be a good way to put it. It's more, I mean, it's the full story versus like, okay, the How to Trade in Stocks was kind of like what Bill did with How to Make Money in Stocks. I always told Bill like you need to write your reminiscence, and he's like no one cares, And I would collect all of his stuff, and he'd go like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I want to have a museum one day." And oh, he didn't like that. That was the first and last time I ever said that because he didn't look at himself that way. His humility was such that even though he was very sure of himself. I mean, he realized he was the best trader around, and even though there were people that made a lot more money than him, they made a lot more money than him because they set up as a hedge fund. That's it. If you want to make a bunch of money, that's what you do. You set up as a hedge fund. You don't do what what we were doing at the firm. And so the Stanleys of the world and the Soroses of the world and all those folks, the Jim Simons and you know, well, he's a little bit different because it's all automated, but their goal was to make the most amount of money, and they did. Bill's goal was to try to help people, and that's what he was able to do. But he just did not want to write one of those. Okay, so the question for someone who, like our mutual friend Bob, who's been trading longer than both of us, if you were to try to give someone advice that none of us should be trying to give advice to, but someone like that has been doing this as long as us or longer, what would you say to do?
Listen to Bob.
There you
I
go.
mean, dude, I force him to play golf with me and or go to lunch with me once a year. Like, I'm not telling him. I mean, everybody has some special knowledge that they've learned that they can help somebody like him, but, I just take notes when I sit down to lunch with him.
I think
I
that's the right
mean,
answer.
what would I tell him? I don't dude, I would say I would only accept that if he said, "Hey, I've had a bad streak. Can we just talk and maybe I could help him figure out why he's had a bad streak." He doesn't need any help, man.
No, he doesn't. Well, let's not let's take Bob out of the equation. Let's just go to, okay, the normal person who's been trading like 10 to 20 years. So they really, and they're good and they want to get it to the next level. What advice would you give to them?
I would say make sure you know why you wanna go to the next level, and is your head game in tune? If you're 20, 30 years in, you understand every variable, you've had a lot of success. I have to ask you, why do you wanna level up? I mean, is your head game in tune? I'll tell you, I didn't understand head game, like, you know, the psychology didn't come into play for me until 10 years ago, and I'm now, tangentially speaking, I went through a 20 years and I didn't understand position size. I just was like all in.
Uh-huh.
I didn't recognize how dangerous I had been running for a long time. I think the pinnacle is self-actualization of trading is the mental game. That's
Yeah,
the top of the pyramid.
I would agree.
And I'll
I
tell
would,
you one thing about Bill.
yeah, go
Bill
ahead.
could have been one of the last,
Wait, say that last part. I couldn't hear it.
but Bill could have been one of the biggest traders ever,
Uh-huh.
but he would have had to have moved to global macro because there's not enough liquidity in stocks. You
Not
start
the way he
running
would do it. Yeah, not
5
the
billion,
concentrated. Yeah.
10 billion,
I
he would have to get into currencies, bonds.
Yeah, I would agree with that, or spread out. Now, I will say there is this aspect of Bill that people don't realize because, like I said, I would when I was there at O'Neill, you know, I would study everything I had access to because it was so valuable to me. I had all of his personal model books, and so I would study those each day. I'd spend a half an hour each day with a magnifying glass going over his notes because I was like, wow, I'm not always going to have access to this, which I don't anymore. And I really need to soak this in. I'm here working for him for this, you know? And so I studied his model books, but then I also went back and studied his NESME books from the beginning of when he started that service. And we had an archive there, and I would just go out to it, and it was all under lock and key. And I would go, okay, I'm going to take the first year, and I would take like a one book of each month, and I'd take it back to my office, and I would study that, and and I would see because on there it would show where he put it on and where he removed it, and that's how I learned how his style morphed over the decades and over the years. And there was a time in there, and I think it was the mid to early 80s, where on his Nesme book, he had over 350 names on there that he was recommending. Now, he didn't remember that when I shared it to him because it was this big, thick book, but he had been in like the polar opposite of how you would trade or how he would teach to trade, but that's what he was doing. And you can't say that there were more stocks out there because I was like, oh, maybe there were a lot more stocks at the time. And I looked at the universe, and it was even smaller. There were maybe like 4 or 5,000 publicly traded stocks at that time. And then if you looked at the ones that were of the liquidity and price that he would want, even smaller. So he had all different things that he would morph into over the years. But the psychological thing, I remember him talking to me about Dreyfus, and you remember the whole Dreyfus story, and that's how he started off, right? Do you know the Dreyfus story? Okay, so do you tell the Dreyfus story
You
because
got the
people want to hear from you,
prospectuses.
not me? Yeah. So I have those somewhere, but what he would say
Well,
was,
Dreyfus had the best fund.
say again? Man, my internet.
Had the best fund performance at the time,
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's this in and
and
out.
so he
Yeah, so he asked for the prospectus, and that's how he figured out that Dreyfus was buying everything at new highs. And so we would talk about that. But then the other thing he said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but that Dreyfus did not want to deal with people's emotions. So he hired a psychologist to be on staff, and he would just anyone was dealing with any issues in life or whatever, he would send them over there. And you had brought up how you go to see a psychologist, and I think that that's, and I know Charles went to one for a while, and it really, and he openly talks about that and how much it helped him. And I think we've all been to them over the years. And so what would you say? Because I think that's very important for people to realize, like whether you do it through a person or you're really putting a lot of time into the mental aspect of it. So what did you learn from that? And if maybe someone doesn't have the means to go to a psychologist, what would you say that they could do to kind of get at what you learned?
all right, first of all, there is no shame in going to a shrink. You're actually evolved, and
Mhm.
it is a luxury that is reserved for few. I went because I had some bumps in my dude, everybody has bumps. Princess
Yeah.
Diana had literal big troubles, and she's a princess with a dowry of X billions of dollars. So I went because of that. But then I started to recognize this person's helping me understand me and my reasons I could be getting off track and things that mentally that make me do things I shouldn't do.
Mhm.
Now, when my problems abated, I said, I still need maintenance. And this is an absolute fact. I don't care how evolved you get and how much historical performance you've had, you're susceptible to blowing up. You have to
Everyone.
have maintenance and stay on point. And going back, I'm segueing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bill was super flexible, and one I had dinner with him, and he's like, "Yeah, I've taken all my profits this year at 15% or 20." I'm like, "You did
Oh, yeah,
what?"
I remember that
He's like, "Well,
time.
the market just isn't giving more."
Yeah.
And then other he would just go for the long ball. And I think there's a critical distinction between being prudently, occasionally altering, and then altering all the time, where you just lose all discipline. And you're like, well, I'm flexible. Well, you need to stay attuned or on track with the plan 99, 98, 95% of the time. It's a special occasion is not once a week. A special occasion is once a year.
Mhm.
So you can't bastardize the system because of your whim of the day. You can adjust because the market's made a very noticeable, definitive change in action over 9 months that looks permanent. So
I totally agree with
I'm
that. And
finished.
say, okay. And he would morph. And I do remember that time where you what had happened is things would go up 15% and then roll over and go up 15% and not maybe not collapse, but just pull back in and base again and just enough to shake us out. And he recognized that before any of us really, because we were wired, you got to do it this way, even though I swing trade now a lot. At the time it was position trading because it was his money and all. And, your goal was to try to sell it when it's up 20%. But once he was fine with that, locking him in at 15% or even less, it was no big deal. And he would morph at times. There was, he would always buy something on a follow through day, but there was a time where he kept us at a limit of 1% invested max, not a 1% position, but 1% total invested because we had just been getting chopped up so much that that was the feedback he was getting from the market is there's something going on where the team is not doing what he was happy with, nor himself, because he was a member of the team. And so he just, it was that capital preservation. He said, okay, no one can go more than 1% invested. And I think as a PM, that was very frustrating at the time. Um, Extremely frustrating because there are times where you're like, no, this is where I want to, plunge or whatever, because that's what we were. We were a bunch of plungers, and he was the king plunger, and that was fine. We were a bunch of gunslinging cowboys. Really, that's what we did. But then we would dial it back, and he would encourage that or mandate that at the 1%. So what other things before we get into the music thing, and I'm really looking forward to having you back and maybe we'll do more questions from the audience, but what other like the life lessons do you want to leave people with, whether it's about the market or about, anything?
I think we should both say what we think Bill's greatest attribute was in the market. And in my perception, was he had this ability to know when to hammer the accelerator and when to back off. And other people have a ability, but I think he had a evolved ability that kept him in the game and kept him big when he kept him in the game when things were bad by being small. He knew how to throw the hammer down when the opportunity was good. And I've just from talking to him, I could just tell he was super in tune. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone like that ever. And that is an ability that is, I think that's why people blow up when they got out of his auspice.
Yeah, he had that ability to really turn on a dime and have the conviction to do that and then be on that edge of flipping back the other way and not caring at all. And that's a really hard thing to when you get we all have it's kind of like maybe it's like karate. I never did martial arts, but well, I did a little bit, but not anything for any real amount of time. And they have all these belts and stuff. And so that's like a certain type of black belt when you have that ability to be able to pedal the metal, slam on the brakes, and then you got to go pedal the metal again. Because if the market does that, you have to you have to be willing to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be left back. I mean, you remember like the October 1998 when that market turned, or even in late 99. And Justin, you who were both close friends with, and I work with, and he was Bill's assistant for a while, or for a long time, that in 99, he was working with Bill, and Bill had put out a memo to clients and everything, super bearish before that market turned, super bearish. And then when the market turned, he went super bullish and just switched and had no like that's a very hard thing to do for people to be able to switch. And once you can do that and not care what anybody else said, and you put something out on Twitter, there's always going to be like the unkind folks of the world who just want to poke at you. Nobody, if you say left, they're going to say right, and vice versa. And he didn't care about that. But as far as his best attribute, his flexibility, like you were saying, but there was something else I was thinking of, and I will try to remember what it was. I think what I would say for me would be studying history. And that's something I got from him because anyone who'd been around him for any period of time knew that he had his original model book memorized. Like he didn't have a photographic memory, but it was like this thick. And it was the first one that he came out with. We called it the green model book. And he would always say, oh, that reminds me of XYZ stock in whatever year, or this reminds me of XYZ stock. And so he would be able to go there in the precedent analysis that's involved there. That's a next level. And once you get that down, that's another notch in that black belt. I know what I was remembering. This is the key to Bill. And I don't know if I've talked about it before or not, and I've been meaning to, because in my post analysis of what Bill did, if you go back to his big winners in time, so you go back to whether it's Chrysler, Syntex, Genentech that you mentioned at the one time, Pick and Save, Price Company, eBay, Apple, blah blah blah. You know, all the ones that I'm forgetting about that made him what he was if you go back and study it, because I was there in real time. He did not know what these companies did when we put them on the list, because we'd be the ones talking on Sunday, and he would say, "Well, Mike, what does this do?" And I'd be blah blah blah. And it would be very high level, and that's all he would know is like, oh, it's technology, it's chips. What do they do? Oh, it saves people money. You know, okay, that would be all he would know. And then he would start buying it. If it didn't test him, and this is where I'm not good, if it did not test him for the first 5 weeks or so, where if you look at a weekly chart, because he was so in on weekly charts, if you look at weekly charts and it never tested him until he was out of the gate, those were the ones that he piled into. So all of his big winners, look at the very beginning, even Amgen, which is his most impressive trade in the of his entire career, and that was in the 90s. And that is such a story. And I did do an episode on that. But when he was in there, he was not tested at first. And so during those first 5 weeks, that's when he would study everything and then get to know the company. But if he'd buy it and it just started rolling over on him, out it went, and he never thought about it again. So it was just that ability to be patient for the first, 5 to kind of 8 weeks. And did you observe that from him, or have you observed that on your own trading?
Well, for sure in my own trading, but I have to give a little shout out to Lee Freestone because back in the day, and I'm going way back, you'd
Right.
call IBD and say, I have a question. They'd connect you to Lee.
Yeah.
So I get to know Lee. I fly out to LA to go to a Bill weekend thing and I have lunch with Freestone. And he rolls in. I'm like, what's up? He's like, I won't say how much, but he just bought what I would consider to be a mammoth position in double click. Or
Okay.
maybe it wasn't, this is like 98. So
Okay.
whatever. I I go, what do they do? He's like, I don't know. He goes, I'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And I realized that he was buying off price action.
Yeah.
And now in my, you know, after doing this for a long time, I'll see something explode and I'll just pick up the phone and buy a bunch of it. And I won't know. And then I'll try to get a handle on it. Price action drives me.
Hmm.
And then, but I can't hold it unless I really know the fundamentals. And what you said, I have to recall that the biggest names I've had, they were monsters. They never looked back. Like they were under radical accumulation. They closed at the high over and over and over and over. And when they digested, they didn't get slammed. They held fairly tight. So all that is true. Taking a position, you don't have to know everything about it. And by the way, oh my God, I'm on a tangent.
No, go
You don't
ahead,
need a
man.
CFA. You don't need to know discounted cash flow. You need 99 comp names with 20% pre-tax, after-tax return on earnings expectations, earnings beat. These guys who are spending 2 years trying to pass these crazy hard tests, I could tell you all you need to know by looking at a data graph in 2 minutes.
Yeah. That's why he designed it that way. And he did not care about it was bad if he had letters after your name. Like he would, that was a negative. You saw that with Bill. Like if there was a while where we had a couple really highly intelligent people out of some big schools like Wharton MBAs and stuff, he was not a fan, like, because it was that mentality that was different than what you're talking about, and what Lee did, and the way I think we all like to approach it is you really wouldn't know. I would know as much as I needed to know to answer any questions Bill would ask. So I would have to do a bunch of research on the companies that I don't do anymore, because I had to in case Bill asked. But most of the time he wouldn't ask. But I just had to be prepared in case. And that was a lot of sunk time in a lot of these companies that then we'd put it on the list, it would break out for 2 days and roll over, and we wouldn't trade it again. I was like, well, that was not a good use of time. The way he would do it was the way I said he'd buy there at the pivot. If it wasn't testing him, and I think the key was then he was all about that cushion that we were talking about earlier. If he had a big enough cushion, any normal and natural reaction that would happen, he would be able to still be up on that, even if he had to peel back a few shares. But then he could, if it firmed up, it could go back just plowing back in and building his monster positions. And speaking of Lee, I remember because people who don't know, Lee was the one who ran the most amount of money at the firm and had the most success on a dollar standpoint from Bill. And Lee had Lee was in Bill's office for a number of years, and then Lee went off and had his own office. And then I shared an office with Bill, and so that was like a very special thing. But what Lee would do would pile in. He was a very much a like a knockoff of Bill, and when Lee was around, Bill would really look to him like Lee would have the answers. It was a very unique thing. I remember one time when Bill wasn't in a good mood, he's like, "Well, you know, Tony or whoever in the trading desk said that you called up and you bought 400 shares at the market on XYZ stock. It was a lower price stock." And he's like, "Where's that in the book? And where did you learn that from?" And this was hilarious. And he looked at Bill and he's like, "I learned it from you, Bill." And Bill just laughed. And he had been like going round by round, like ragging on each one of us, which is how the PM meetings went. And then when Lee said that, he just like, what could he do? Like, that's what Bill would do. Bill would plow into things. And when you share an office with him, you see what he would actually really do. And that's what Lee saw. And Lee was very, 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 very talented and very much a closed, he wasn't one for teaching people, and he was just doing his own thing, and everyone's cut their own way. So what other last little things? And then we're going to get into your favorite album. Do you have anything else that you would like to leave folks with? I think we covered a lot.
I think thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to doing it again. And I think we'll save some for next time.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and thank you for taking the time to do this. This is so much fun. I love doing this stuff, and I love talking to you, and always looked forward to the level fours because I would know that you were going to be there, and your buddy was going to be there, and yeah. So, anyways, Cubby and all. So we are going to switch into, do not tell me your favorite song, but I want to know your favorite. I'm going to tell folks, this is what we do with Hangouts. You tell me your favorite album, then we're going to go through song by song on there to figure out what your favorite song is on there. So what is your favorite album?
Come on. Oh, dude, I wasn't prepared for that. You told so I'm looking at my most played songs from 2025,
Don't tell me the song. You got to tell me the
and
album.
it's so eclectic.
Okay, I'm going to ask it this way.
Motorhead, Motorhead,
What?
Motorhead album.
Motorhead. Okay, I'm not a Motorhead person, so let's get into this. That is really your favorite. Okay,
Oh
Motorhead.
my,
No, I'm going to give you a second to.
well, that's what I listen to the most.
No. Let's put it this way. You're sitting there and you are going to, it's the desert island thing. We grew up, you're old. You remember this back in high school. They would go, okay, you're trapped on a desert island and you can only bring one album with you. Because Motorhead seems more like a very specific mindset that you're in. Like that was a go type of thing. If you just have one album that you can bring and that's all you're going to be able to listen to while you're for the rest of your life, what is that album going to be? I'll give you a moment. We can edit out your thinking.
Give me 3 seconds,
Okay.
dude. Stay with me.
I'm staying with you. And if you want me
Okay,
to,
you
what?
ready?
Yep.
I'm full of excuses. I used to have orange crates full of albums, and I listened to whole albums. But in the age of Spotify, I just listen to songs. Like
I think
I
a lot
would.
of people
So
do.
one of the ones that comes up is Stevie Ray Vaughan. Something about the weathers is one of my favorite. But
Couldn't
I said
stand the
that
weather.
because I
Okay.
know
We're
you
going
like
to,
SRV.
okay.
But I love that the song "Change It" is
Oh,
probably one of my favorite all time songs.
That's a good one. That's
But
a
I
great one.
like super heavy metal. Like I love Godsmack.
What?
Godsmack is so I
I did not
love
know that.
like when I work out, I love oh my god.
Okay, we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do, Ropes. We're going to give you time. The next time you come back, you're gonna put thought into this. So this is what we're going to do. Since I've got Guns N' Roses on, Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction, because that was my guess that you were going to say. We are going to go through that and we're going to try to figure out your favorite song from Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction. And your homework is that when you come back, you need to have really thought this through of what your favorite album is back when you had your orange crates there. So let me pull up the album, and there's a rite of passage for the Webby Rambles on Hangout. Okay. So I'm going to give you them in order, and
I
then
promise
you're going to
I will
tell
do
me of these. Go ahead. So I'm going to give you three at a time, and
I
you're going to
promise
tell
I'll
me
do it.
of them. Okay. Of those three songs, which one is your favorite? Not your favorite on the album, but which of those three songs, what's your favorite? Welcome to the Jungle, It's So Easy, or Night Train? Welcome to the Jungle, It's So Easy, or
Welcome to
Night
the
Train?
jungle.
Okay. Welcome. Okay. Then you know what? For the
Welcome to the
longest
jungle.
time, what I used to do is every time I'd get off an airplane and kind of stop this, I would walk off the airplane listening to Welcome to the Jungle. I just thought it was funny, but I'm a little dork. I think I need to go to a shrink again. Okay. The last shrink I went to, I was not happy with what she said and I left and didn't come back. All right. I'll tell you that story offline. Out to Get Me, Mr. Brownstone, and Paradise City. Out to Get Me, Mr.
Mr.
Brown.
Brownstone.
Dude, that was the first Guns N' Roses song I ever heard. 15 seconds into it, I'm like, this is the Bo Diddley beat. This is Bo Diddley. This is, and I became an instant fan. Okay, Mr. Brownstone, you, sir, have good taste. Okay, next, My Michelle, Think About You, or Sweet Child of Mine. My Michelle, which is a Think About
Sweet
You,
child of mine.
of course. I actually think the weakest song on the album is My Michelle, and it's still a 10 out of 10. Still a great song, but it's just the weakest, in my opinion. Don't no hate, people. Okay, now we've got You're Crazy, Anything Goes, or Rocket Queen. You're Crazy, Anything Goes, or Rocket Queen.
Rocket Queen.
Yes, of course. Okay, so now out of
Rocket
the,
Queen.
yes, I know, right? Yeah, that's such a. I felt so bad for. There was that Steve, the drummer's girlfriend, right? That he was that Axel was with. That wasn't that the story?
Steven
We
Adler's girlfriend.
Yeah, we keep this family
Yes, I think
friendly, so
so.
we're not going to talk about that. But those people who know, because I do have this. I keep this as a channel that like people can watch with their with their kids. Okay, so now out of those four, we're going to narrow it down. What is your favorite one? So either Welcome to the Jungle, Mr. Stone, Sweet Child of Mine, or Rocket Queen. There is a right answer in those. I'll give it to you again. Welcome to the Jungle.
Welcome to the jungle.
Okay, Welcome to the Jungle. You can't go wrong with Welcome to the Jungle. You cannot go wrong with because you remember that when the video came out and he's like getting off of the bus with his little bag, and I think he's got like a little thing in his. That was so classic, man. Have you seen them live before? When was the last time you saw them live?
Yeah, I did with maybe like 8, 10 years ago at Soldier Field. Warm up was Lane Staley's band after he died.
Oh, okay.
The favorite, the big song's The Rooster. But anyway,
Okay.
you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, was it Stone Temple? Wait,
Go on.
Allison
Karen?
Kane, Stone Temple.
Yes. No. Well, I saw Velvet and Stone Temple,
Oh, wow. I
but
never
this
saw
wasn't
Velvet.
them.
Okay. Well, I saw them back
Duff
Metallica.
McKagan.
Oh, Duff is so, if you listen to his own stuff, and that guy is really, really, I mean, obviously Slash is like one of my idols. I mean, I was at a concert recently to see Mammoth, which is Eddie Van Halen's son, Wolfie, but opening up one of my favorite new artists, not new, but new to me is Miles Kennedy, and he sings for Slash's band. And anyways, he was just doing a solo thing for Art of Letting Go, which is one of the best albums out there that no one has heard of. It's so good. And Slash made an appearance, and the place just went freaking crazy. It was at a House of Blues, and Slash came out and did like a 6 minute solo, and it just, I mean, I've never seen a small place like that just go as crazy, and it was an epic solo. But Welcome to the Jungle, what a great tune! I will have to say they're all great on there. My favorite is Rocket Queen, but man, they're all great. Like, I mean, Mr. Brownstone, like, come on, like, that's so good. Out to Get Me, You're Crazy. Okay, what do you like better, the acoustic version of You're Crazy, or that was on the Lies album, or do you like this original version better?
The original.
Okay, there's not a right answer or a wrong answer, man. They're both great. They're just like totally different. So, dude, this was such a pleasure. Thank you for spending your evening with all of us here. I think a lot of people probably had a lot of fun, learned a lot from you, as we always do. And you are the golden goose, man. You just make us all happy. And it's so nice whenever you're on anything at IBD, everyone is just like, oh, Jim is, it's like we're going to be in a good mood the rest of the day because Jim's around. You can't be in a bad mood with you, right? It's impossible.
I'm in a pretty good mood. My trainer, he's been training me for 15 years or more. He's made me 5 pounds fatter, by the way, Keith O'Shea. But he's like, of all my customers, he's like, you're the most consistently stable, happy. But I want to change. I want to go back to Guns N' Roses.
Sure.
One of my favorite songs of all time is a kind of a duet with Slash and Demi Lovato. Papa Was a Rolling Stone.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome,
Yes.
awesome jam. You've
Yes.
got to listen. Demi Lovato rocks out. Her voice is on point. It's killer tune.
Yeah, that album that he
And
did,
that's it, big dog.
yeah, the Slash album that he did with the blues stuff there's some great stuff. He had a lot of like special artists on there that, each one. Gary Clark Jr. was on there, Chris Robinson was on there. Like he had so many different people come in, and Brian Johnson from AC/DC did a song with him on that. What is the name of that album? I'll have to look it up. I mean, do you remember?
Damned.
Yes, yes, yeah. And I wanted to go see that tour, and I didn't. Yeah, Orgy of the Damned, just a great, great.
Yes.
Let me look at that one.
So, dude,
Oh,
he also covers well. He covers
Yes.
Fleetwood Mac's "Oh Well" on there. It's another total
Oh,
jam.
well, with Chris Stapleton, who's actually going to be in town. Did
Yes.
Hoochie Coochie with Billy Gibbons. The Pusher with Chris Robinson is on that album, and that's actually a really good song. Yeah, the Papa Was Rolling Stone was on there. Oh, Killin' Floor is the one he did with Brian Johnson, the singer for AC/DC. And I'll just tell you, that is my favorite Hendrix tune. Well, it wasn't a Hendrix tune. Like, lots of people have done it, Howlin' Wolf and everything. Hendrix did that live at Monterey. That was the first song he came out with. So he was over in, in London area. And then he came out for the Monterey Pop Festival. I think it was June 18th, 1967. Someone could correct me on that if I'm wrong. I doubt I am. And he opened up with Killin' Floor and just nailed it. Yeah, everyone needs to go listen to that version. It's just unbelievable. With that note, I just want to say thank you. I'm looking forward. You're welcome to be back anytime you have some time. Just text me, say, hey, I've got time this Wednesday, and we'll hook it up and record one of these. And I'll let you have the final words from me. It's peace out, but say goodbye to everyone.
In relation to the invitation, I'm buying what you're selling. Everybody, be optimistic, lean into it. Just hypothetically, something that rocks my world is when you have this giant up move in the market and then things start going dead tight. I just really get revved up when I see that and think about that in the current events. All right, man, out. Have a great night.
See you, brother. Don't go away. Don't go away.